All right, good evening. It's March 21, 2023, and this is a meeting of the Shrewsbury Conservation Commission. Our first item on the agenda is to review and approve minutes. Alea.
Where all were present, I have October 16th, 2018, December 18th, 2018, March 19th, 2019, April 20th, 2021, and June 17th, 2021. These were before Chris, so no voting.
I make a motion that we approve those minutes.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Then I also have February 21st, 2023, where all of you were present.
Make a motion, we approve those minutes.
Yep.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now I have minutes where, Jason, you were absent, so no seconding for you.
Okay.
July 19th, 2016, October 15th, 2019, and July 20th, 2021. Jason Port was absent.
I make a motion, we approve those minutes.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I have one additional minute where Martha Gash was absent. On August 16th, 2016, Martha Gash was absent.
I make a motion, we approve those minutes.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Is that it?
That'll do it.
That's it. Okay, good. Second item, sign bills. Any bills tonight in?
No bills.
No bills. All right, going on to our meetings and hearings. Our first one is a continued public hearing. It's regarding the notice of intent filed by Rashid Sheikh, 24 Sherrill Drive, Shrewsbury, for the construction of two single-family houses at 42 Sadler Avenue and 37 to 39 Melvin Avenue.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Scott Goddard, Goddard Consulting, Wetlands Professional. With us tonight is the applicant and owner, Rashid Sheikh. He's glad to be here after some family matters that took precedent at the last meeting. And attorney Jim Duffy, who's here to discuss a restrictive covenant that we'd like to propose as part of a remedy to one of our ongoing matters. In fact, I think it might be our only ongoing discussion topic for this property. You want me to leave the plans here? Is that a fair location?
Yeah,
I know it's small
can,
for you guys.
I know there's some people in the public that are interested. Can you see the plans okay?
Nothing's
No,
changed.
not really, but
Well-
I can, as long as I can hear him, that's fine.
Okay, okay.
And I can bring them closer if you'd like, or however you want. I'll leave them here unless you tell me otherwise.
Why don't you leave them there right for the time
Nothing
being?
on this plan has changed since the last go-around. We had a conversation with myself and Bert Corey, who's the civil engineer, who's not present tonight. And the conversation, as I recall it, largely revolved at the end around the storage or the ability for storage within floodplain areas. We have the portion of the lower level below the living space that has flood openings, which we have discussed, that allows for the passage of water during the 100-year storm. We expect the flooding in that basement to be very infrequent. This isn't like we're in the 10-year floodplain or anything like this. It's an infrequent level of flooding. But nevertheless, it is situated to endure flooding. Of the two garage spaces, one of the garages is above the floodplain and completely enclosed. One of the second garage to the furthest unit on the right, that has the flood openings as well. So what do we do with that? Well, we have the issue of storage of oil, cars, propane tanks, fertilizers, these types of products that traditionally homeowners will store in garage spaces or basement type or shed type spaces. So it's a significant concern and one that the commission shared largely. How do we handle it? So we've asked Attorney Duffy to review that and propose some kind of a methodology that could tackle it. And his suggestion from a legal perspective was a restrictive covenant. Some drafts of those have gone around between your staff and our team, and I'd like him to present to you what is his proposed solution for this situation.
Now, I'd be happy to present. I forwarded the most recent draft to Ms. Casso earlier today, and I don't know if it's been circulated. I do have extra copies if you would like me to hand those out.
Yeah, why don't you circulate as many as you can, please?
I'll give it to them.
The most up-to-date version is in the.
Is it significantly different than the one that we previously were sent?
So this one was forwarded at 11 o'clock this morning.
Yep.
It does make some changes.
Okay,
In response to Ms. Casso's comments, we identified the specific toxic and hazardous chemicals list that's in the Code of Massachusetts Regulations, as well as identified certain common household chemicals that someone might expect to store in a garage-type environment, as was previously mentioned. And the goal here was both to put homeowners on notice that they could not use this space to store this type of material, that anything below the 100-year floodplain was they were prohibited from using anything below the 100-year floodplain for storage of these types of materials. Additionally, the goal is to give the town of Shrewsbury the ability to take action if someone were to store materials within that 100-year floodplain. Our concern with, going with a pier system is people are still going to use that for the purpose of storage. Only instead of it being now a enclosed environment that's only affected by, the 100-year flood, it would be impacted by anytime there's significant precipitation, a hard rainfall, snow melt, things of that nature. So this gives the town the ability to, prohibit people from using this for this types of purpose and take action if they were to find out that it was being used for those purposes. And I don't know if you have any questions. I'd be happy to address and answer those.
I think it's a good idea, and it's definitely necessary for sites such as this because of the potential here for the storage. One of the questions I had looking at your old restrictive covenant was the definition. I think you used hazardous chemicals without actually making reference to where it's defined.
Right.
And that's a big thing, and it looks like you've made reference to the 301 CMR 41
Correct.
site now. The only thing, is there also a definition for hazardous materials versus chemicals? I mean, are we talking the exact wording that they would find in that site, or
That is the definition that is found.
it's listed as chemicals? But is there also one for hazardous materials in that same definition section of
It
the
is,
site?
yes, it's identified as hazardous chemicals and materials and toxic chemicals.
Right, so does this address the hazardous materials? I mean, I see the reference to hazardous chemicals.
Yeah, well, so this addresses it by identifying,
Common
Common
chemicals
ones
that
as well.
could
Correct.
potentially, but some of these may not even fit the definition of a hazardous material. They have to be of a certain pH, they have to be reactive, there's a whole,
right, and this addresses it by identifying it within the actual covenant itself.
But
So-
I think this says that the list of these 5 items is in addition to, it says section B, additionally to hazardous chemicals, also common household cleaners and
Right.
are included in that category.
right, but Scott, what I'm saying is, there's a difference between hazardous chemicals and hazardous materials.
Sure.
I mean, and my question was, is there a definition for hazardous materials in that site that should be incorporated here also?
It does that by, we did change the language from the one that you had seen previously to here to identify hazardous chemicals as being defined by anything that's on that list.
Correct.
As well as these additional ones. So
Okay,
it-
and I agree with you 100% there. You got the
I-
hazardous chemicals covered, and you have these common pesticides, fertilizers, household cleaners, thinners, and things such as that. I'm not arguing.
No, and-
Perfect.
Right, and,
How about hazardous materials that,
And-
by definition, in the regulations, that might include other things than are listed here?
Right, and so the definition used in this covenant is specifically identifying all of those substances listed in 301 CMR 41.03, which includes hazardous and toxic materials.
I think, though, with the words hazardous chemicals, you're limiting the list that's the toxic substances to just the hazardous chemicals. And maybe there's some things that are in that definition. Maybe if it didn't say, if it didn't limit it just to the hazardous chemicals and
Okay.
said anything on the list.
I can amend it to include that, but, it was my understanding that, by defining it with the use of the CMR, it was already incorporated within this list.
And if I may, we discussed that as well, and one of the reason we did that is because we want to give ability to, because state change these lists and update. If we put specific chemicals, then you wouldn't be able to.
I agree with you 100%, Rashid. I'm not arguing. This reference by definition to the regulatory site is perfect, because they can change that at any time.
Keep it updated
And it's
as things
updated to
go.
that, so that's perfect.
Right.
But the only thing is, maybe we have to just go back. And I don't have the answer, but is there a definition for hazardous materials next to what would be listed as hazardous chemicals in that? And then we could see, might be radioactive substance, that's where I'm going at, which
Yeah.
isn't a chemical.
And I fully appreciate, and the list includes all of those substances currently. So, but I am happy to amend it so that it addresses those particular.
Yeah, and I'm curious, and I'll go back to and check the site
Sure.
to see what the definition, how the definitions are.
Right.
are worked.
I think the word "all" between, shall mean all substances which pose an environmental risk is identified in 301 CMR 4103, because it's a pretty extensive list, like
Yeah.
It
John
is.
mentioned.
It includes.
We-
I just think
even
by saying hazardous chemicals, you're limiting it just the things that people interpret as chemical.
Yeah.
Our understanding, so we discussed that particular point because we read the email, and we discussed that particular point quite a few times. We even thought about adding another, like a list there, but then we said, well, then we are limiting the town's ability to, go after that. So then that's the reason we said, okay, leave it there. Then we looked at, is there a separate hazardous material versus chemical? We find this as the most, comprehensive. But if, for example, board pleases that we add that verbiage, we can check and add that, and that could be part of the
I
condition.
think to Chris's point, if you simply add the word all.
All.
Yeah, all shall mean all substances
Yeah.
defined in that area, then that.
I want to go
one
back
word
to the
seems-
definition and see what it
Right,
includes,
that's just-
and how is it
just all-
defined? And does it have to be expanded to include the word materials, like Chris is saying? It seems to be limiting it to chemicals. And
So why don't we just agree to add that particular word and be done with it?
Well,
I mean,
no, we're not, I'm not buying into that, Rashida, without looking right at it. So does
Mr.
anybody else
Chairman.
on the commission?
Oh, sorry, I was just looking at it. It basically says toxic and hazardous substances. It doesn't say.
Well, substances, yeah.
That's how
versus
it's defined in that.
materials.
That's how it's defined in the.
Yeah, and they have a definition of what,
Yeah, and it references other Mass General law. Yeah. Oh, so he said hazardous substances.
yeah. I mean, there's a federal, what you're referencing here is, okay, it's identified, okay, yeah, so you reference the federal regulation and as well as further defined by Mass General law.
Right.
So you got both of them, sort of.
It's, just to clarify, it is the mass regulation, but the mass regulation also
Yes,
incorporates the federal.
pulls in that.
Yes.
Yep, I hear you. Martha, do you have some questions on the covenant that they presented?
No, I do want to say that I appreciate that you have phrased it so that we're not talking just about the house, but we're talking anywhere on the property that's below flood elevation, so thank you.
Jason?
Has town council seen this?
No.
So that would be one major issue I would have. Town council obviously has to review it if the town is going to enter and take this on. Another issue is I think this is putting way too much liability on the town to enforce the covenant. Right? I mean,
That's a fair point. but
if
it-
we don't, if the town doesn't act and enforce its rights under the covenant, and one of the neighbors sues the town,
That's,
we got an issue, right? We're taking on liability we don't have today.
okay. Essentially, I see your point, and I think that is a valid point. But, I think with respect to any of these types of restrictions, any attempt to restrict the ability of someone to use their property, at the end of the day, it does fall on someone to be the one to act. And that doesn't change whether or not we're going to a peer system or, providing a restrictive covenant. This at least provides some framework for someone to act to, require that certain materials be removed from the 100-year flood plan as the concern was rightly expressed by this commission.
Sure. And I don't want to argue it, but a pier system, somebody driving by can see, right? An enclosed space would suggest, under this covenant, that the town has a right to enter upon the property inside without any sort of
They would need to have, a
procedural
reasonable belief and then.
14th
act in-
Amendment due process to enter upon the premises.
Right, there would still need to be some sort of reasonable expectation that this violation had taken place.
And then, and again, that opens up the town to liability, right? Because how are we going to say, and I don't mean to pick on you, but a neighbor down the street says, I think they went in with some paint cans and put them in the basement, is that enough? What's the standard for us to enter upon somebody's private house to look into their, not basement, but the substructure
The
of the
storage
house?
I think you're also running into a similar issue with a pier system, Okay, someone put something under a tarp, okay, what is now the authority of the town to go in and peek under the tarp to, go
There
up
is
to
no.
the curtilage, whether or not, someone's driving by. You're gonna run into that same issue, that same, concern, but this at least provides some legal basis for the town to enforce these requirements.
And I hear you, Counselor, I do. Again, I think the issue is, does the town want to take on liability that it does not have today?
Well,
And I don't, to quite honestly, I don't think the town does. We have enough issues that we're liable for. To your point, there's enough codes and restrictions that we have to follow. Do all of a sudden we want to, and generally stated, do we want to permit the town to enter upon a private residence without any sort of framework for the 14th Amendment and due process?
I respect your concerns, and, I guess the flip side of that is, without a particular framework, would the town then have the authority to prevent someone from using their property in the normal course of business? And then, that becomes another very difficult legal analysis.
Sure.
Depending on the facts and circumstances and what is known at that time. So, ultimately, is the town better off being able to enforce restrictions within the 100-year flood plan? Or is it still operating with its hands tied and not able to remove those chemicals from within the restricted space?
And I hear you, and I do, I appreciate you trying to find a solution. But we do have the power to protect the floodplain right now by just not preventing this.
We can,
That's it. Thank you.
I agree with Jason's concerns. I think a lot of this would go away if you just go back to the original proposal, that, the original order that was on this property for one home. It would alleviate all these issues. I think that the town is we're putting the town under enormous burden to police this. So, I think if you went back to the original, built one house, you wouldn't have any of these issues. That's it.
Chris?
I agree with Ken. The other thing we talked about last week, or I'm sorry, last month, was no storage of anything whatsoever and only having a crawl space entrance. So you're not just limiting it to toxic chemicals, toxic waste, or anything like that. It'd just be storage of anything, including furniture. And the ability to access the home from the inside of the property was one thing we were concerned about too, from my notes from last month. So, but I echo what Ken said. If it went back to the original plan, it would, all this goes away, including the liability of the town.
I know, Scott, I know you, in your opening statements, you mentioned the basement as a living space. You had said living space, and our intent, at the last meeting, was no way did we want this to be construed as a living space, period. We're talking about not even allowing a person to get in there other than to do an inspection every once in a while, whether it be through some kind of an
Right.
oversized vent hatch.
And if I said that I misspoke, I meant to say it's below the living space, so.
Yeah,
So
because.
I apologize.
Yeah, I mean, I, maybe I heard it wrong, but I thought I heard living space, and, you know, in as much as if this were to be approved with a full foundation and the flood gates on it, I mean, I wouldn't even want to see a door from the first floor level down to this area. It would be totally off limits, other than having somebody crawl in through one of the floodgates. But I am not a big fan of what, I've seen. Again, one of the concerns that I think we brought up last time was the fact that when the water does go into underneath this building and recedes, hopefully it drains somewhat dry, but you have the risk of mold, and, I mean, a person's the living space is above this, and you're gonna have a dark, dank basement, I'll call it a basement, for lack of a better word, but, you have now health concerns come in. We're not health agents, but being an engineer, I mean, I see other problems coming out of this design, other than conservation ones. And original plan, I think that one had one house, and I don't think there was any problems with compensatory storage or having to flood areas under the houses or in the garage. It was a good design for those two lots. Now that we've got the two houses, we're pushing ourselves into a corner. Like Jason said, he brought up the legal issues, which is, another big factor to consider. If this were to ever be built with two houses, personally, the solution here might be to put them on piers, just like one of the other homes down in that area is up on piers. So anybody moving into that, number one, realizes there's a flooding issue going on in the area. I just don't want to see somebody buy into this and think that they have what would be a dry basement, and I know with the covenant, you've got the wording about the flooding, so somebody would have to be pretty ignorant not to know that this has got a flooding issue in the area. But with the piers, you're not going to have the constrained moisture issues. You're not going to have to worry about floodgates. People probably aren't going to store, cans of paint or fertilizer laying on the ground under it. But then again, I'm still in favor of a one home on those two lots also at this point in time.
I have a few comments,
Sure, go ahead.
that I'd like to insert. So, and I'm sure these comments will sound contrary and argumentative, so I'm not trying to be. So I come at this from, a fairly wide breadth of experience in other towns. And I recognize the suburban nature of Shrewsbury and the way that it's developed. There are not a lot of major river systems that have extensive floodplains in the town. When you get into towns that have major streams, Concord River, Sudbury River, Assabet River, and, Merrimack River and Charles River, right? And or in more urbanized areas, you tend to see a lot of BLSF or floodplain sites that are far away from streams and wetlands. So we do a lot of work in Quincy and Boston, and there's entire sections of Quincy and Boston that are all in the floodplain that are not anywhere near a wetland or a stream or a pond. But we still file notices of intent in these areas for work in the floodplain. The Wetland Protection Act has been fairly consistent on its performance standards for floodplain in all areas. There's two criteria. One is wildlife habitat, and the second is compensatory flood storage. So the issues that we're talking about have come up in lots of conversations at the DEP level, adjudicatory hearing levels, but there have never been determinative for the basis on which to deny an application. The conservation commissions that have large floodplains in their communities are used to seeing two types of designs for structures in the floodplain. One is elevated structures on piers. You see that a lot in coastal areas in particular. If you go down on the Cape or any of the outer shore areas where you have V-zones or you have rising floodwaters, that's common. Inland, that's less common to see because it's not as attractive for suburban homeowners, right? It's not typical. It's not to say that it's absent, but it's not typical. What is typical is flood openings. These structures in the foundations are common throughout Massachusetts. They might not be common in Shrewsbury. In fact, I can't think of other sites in Shrewsbury where I've seen them. But you don't have to go far to find them all over the place. They're designed for this purpose, and DEP and other commissions approve this methodology routinely because there's only two performance standards for BLSF. Wildlife habitat, right? We don't meet the criteria here for an alteration of significance to wildlife habitat, so that's been a non-issue on this project. And then compensatory flood storage, which is really a numbers game. Do the numbers work, pre and post? And we have additional flood storage here. The other interests of the Wetland Protection Act aren't presumed to be present for BLSF. So there's miles and miles of public roadways and parking garages and such that are routinely in the floodplain, and normal practices are taken into account when considering that. I'm working on a project right now in downtown Attleboro. It's raising of a gas station or auto repair facility that has contamination in the ground. I mean, there's actually a AUL on the property and the storage oil tanks on the surface. It's being raised. An elevated structure is going there with some retail space, all full frontage stores retail space in the floodplain. And when I say in the floodplain, 4 feet of floodplain on the site. And in the entire first floor of the elevated parking garage, the cars would be underwater in a 100-year floodplain. It easily meets the performance standards on that particular site. But there's a site being designed that's 4 feet of standing water where there would be 50 cars parked. So it's not uncommon to have floodplain in the state of Massachusetts that has automobiles and the oil products that are associated with automobiles or storage in floodplains. In fact, the DEP doesn't regulate storage of anything in floodplains. You can store items that are non-permanent, like a non-structure you can store in floodplains. You can take a car anywhere right now and park it in a floodplain, and there's no BLSF, Wetland Protection Act rule or regulation that prohibits that activity. If that's your car, you may want to not have it there when the flood comes, right? But there's no law that prohibits the placement of a vehicle in a floodplain, whether it's associated with a dwelling or not. And I'm only saying this, well, I'm advocating in a sense for my client, right? But I think this project honestly does meet the regulations under the Wetland Protection Act. And were this to go to a superseding order and all that kind of jazz, the DEP, in my professional opinion, in doing this many, many times before DEP, they would, as a matter of course, approve this project. So I think it's without the restrictive covenant. This is kind of, we don't have to do this in a sense, right? This was kind of our brainstorming session to go above and beyond to attempt to satisfy the concerns expressed by the commission, which are reasonable and fair concerns. So we're happy not doing this. But I think the project would get approved if we were to go to the next step, but keeping it local, it gets to give the commission the authority to choose to do something like this or have other special conditions that are unique to the town or important to the town as part of the project, as opposed to going the whole DEP route on it. So I'm not just making this up, this is my own experience. I could take you on a driving tour around Massachusetts and show you lots of these flood openings in practice, in action, in other communities. So I don't know if that gives you any sense of comfort, but it's what my experience has demonstrated.
So if I don't have any issue personally with your design. And I appreciate the lengths that you went to with the covenant. My issue tonight is that as a taxpayer in this town, I don't want the town to take on more liability than it already has, right? That's number one, because I've got to protect the town.
Sure.
Second to that is, as a general statement, as a U.S. citizen, I do not want to give the town the ability to enter upon somebody's private residence into a substructure to confirm if there's things in there, right? I don't want that.
Sure.
Just as, again, a U.S. citizen, I don't want any town stepping into my house. So
And that's why, and I'm with you, this is why
Yeah.
DEP wouldn't even ask for something like this, right?
they may or they may not.
Right.
Right? I know one thing, DEP would see what we ruled
Right,
on,
that's right.
right, in our local community,
Correct,
and they may or may not
right.
have a superseding order, because they may defer to the town, as has happened in the past.
Right, so
So I don't know the answer to that. I appreciate your experience. You don't know the answer to that.
Correct.
DEP is going to do whatever DEP wants, right? And we can either live by that, or the town can go enforce it a different way. So, I mean, just because DEP proposes an order doesn't mean it's in stone.
no, you're not gonna get an argument from me on that.
Right. So, you know, and I'm not saying that to be argumentative. I'm just saying I appreciate what you've gone to do, but I think, and I'm not going to speak for everybody tonight, I think what you're hearing is nobody's really satisfied with this. And it's not really based on the design. It's based on your stuffing two houses into clearly a floodplain area, right? And that has downward effect to the neighbors, downward effect to the community, and I don't think anybody's in agreement with it.
Mr. Chair, may I say something?
Yes.
You guys wanna?
Go ahead.
So, Mr. Chair, this is kind of my second project in the last couple of years, and we went round and round in the previous project, and I tried to satisfy by adding more and more, and that was my intent here. So unfortunately, it take us longer to get out of this situation. But a couple of things why we went on, this route versus the piers is because there are a lot of concerns with, animals. Sometimes people have seen foxes, bobcats, this, that. When you have pier system, there's also safety issues for kids and everything. And then we're talking about, mold and this and that. Honestly, when you are in the pier system or when you have, storage, I'm not gonna call it basement, it's storage. And it's done as per the building code. There's building code provided for this system. And so if we're doing that as per the building code, then it's called storage space. It doesn't even prohibit all those things. But we said, okay, let's go to the extra mile. We, got involved, a couple of attorneys, and we try to, then they all have that experience, and this is very common, maybe not in Shrewsbury, but it's very common. So the other thing is, these are legal 2 lots, and the tax has been paid on 2 legal lots. Even the water bill is paid on two legal lots. And, it's, when there are 2 legal lots, and this is not, the first lot where you have floodplain and you're asking to build a house. I mean, we're not asking any unfair thing, which is not, suppose they meet. Matter of fact, one of the lot has an address of 3739, Melvin Ave, and it could be even with some modification built as a duplex. But we didn't even go in that route because we said, let's make things simple and make 2 single-family homes as the other homes are there. But, let's also satisfy the board with some, extra things. So honestly, and also you have rodent issues, you have other issues, and then, we're talking about, policing or not policing. When you have crawl space or when you have, enclosed space, you have the same issue. The only thing is, in my opinion, this is safer, cleaner, because when you have shed spaces, people throw all kind of junk when it's kind of that kind of, unclean space, and also when the snow or the water comes in, even a little bit, is going to create damp. Whereas in the enclosed space, you have more kind of control and clean space. You don't have the rodent issue. You don't have the neighbor, blaming on you. You don't have bobcat sitting underneath and you get scared. So you have, if you have a lot better, in my opinion, humble opinion, situation with this controlled environment versus uncontrolled environment. However, I would like to hear, I don't think it's possible for us to go back and do one lot here, because these are two legal lots. But if the board is, looking that, okay, somehow pier system is better, then I'm not against pier system, but we thought it's a safer, cleaner, better environment, giving the whole neighborhood a nice look. Anywhere we have built houses in Shrewsbury, we have, improved the neighborhood. So if the board is really looking for a pier system and willing to consider, maybe we look into that. But if the board really is saying that it's going to be, one lot no matter what, then I think that's kind of, that's not really fair or acceptable.
Well, Rashid, I'm just going to go back to the fact that when you have an enclosed basement like you have proposed tonight, people, if you give them access to it, will put things down there. This is meant to be compensatory storage. It was volume that you need to provide for flood storage. When they have an open area, and I mean, we can write all the covenants we want. You have an enclosed, secure area, they're gonna put things there, especially if you have a door from the first floor going downstairs. They're gonna treat it like a basement. Defeats the purpose of compensatory storage in my mind. I don't know what they're gonna put down there. I don't wanna police what they're gonna put down there. You have a pier system, it's open. Granted, can they throw some things underneath there? Yes, they could. I think it's less likely because they will be crawling, most likely. I don't think it's going to be significantly high, the piers. And you bring up the animals, or bobcat, or this or that. Well, that comes with the fact that we're trying to put two houses on these parcels of land. That comes with the territory. We have to, we go to piers. If some animal wants to go down there and make a little nest, then, hey, it comes with the design. And I think that's, in my eyes, the only alternative. I think if we enclose it, the health issue being one that I have no control over, I think I would be nervous as a builder to do that. If all of a sudden you find out a year later they have toxic black mold in that home, they're not coming at the Concom for that, because we're well documented on our stance. They're coming for Rashid. And now you've really got your hands full. So I'd be very cautious how you proceed with the design here and evaluate these things. But right now, I don't think you have a favorable stance with the commission on a number of things. I love the fact you have the deed restriction, the protective covenant. And the one question I had, and I know Jason brought up liability, and I'm an engineer, not a lawyer. Can a restrictive covenant be made between the property owner and, let's say you have two lots and you create a homeowners association for those two lots? It's two homeowners association. Could that be between the property owner and the homeowners association, that these have to be implemented? These restrictions are put in the deed, and it doesn't bring the town in, because right now, this, as Jason says, is between the homeowner and the town. I'll defer to your attorney on that.
Right, so, yes, we could create a miniature homeowners association.
Right.
Unless other neighbors are, intending to join. And then rely on your respective neighbors to enforce the covenants that are running with the land.
Right, but would they be permanent with the deed? That homeowners association must be part of the deed, it can't be
Yes.
dissolved, and then this covenant runs with that, and,
I mean,
Presumably.
Unless
They both said, we don't want to do this.
right. So it's always difficult to say that anything is ever permanent in
Yeah.
the legal world, but it would at least create some, enforcement mechanism that is outside of the town. And, if that's something that would be,
Right.
the commission would be more comfortable with, we can
right,
put that together instead.
right. So, Andy, do you have anything to add tonight? I didn't go to you.
No, I think it's down to this
Oh, yeah?
particular point.
Do you have any comments?
Was, how tall is the proposed space to be?
I want to call it a storage space because that's what the building code calls it. So this storage space is typical like 7 feet or so.
Okay,
It's a basement.
yeah, with that kind of headspace, of course, people are more likely to go down there and wanting to go down there. Would there be any possibility of it getting shorter, so there's, less inclination to go wander around down there and,
I think we
Popping
can
things.
entertain all kind of things, but my concern would be that more enclosed space, you put more issues you get in terms of, in terms of mold or, other things like that. So I don't know. I mean, I would like to ask the intent of board, if we were to go and, we have two routes here. One is that we take a vote today and I can see where the vote is going, and that would be our choice. And the other would be to look at, and I just don't want to honestly keep going like 2 years like I did last time, because I lost my shirt on it.
You got your approval.
Yes, sir, but, okay, I'm not gonna go in there, but
Okay.
it cost me $1 million more, and then it cost me a lot of time. But anyway, I just want to say, if we go back and come with the peer system, for example, how do we look at, is it going to be looked at positively? If that's, or is it going to be looked at the same way?
Well, we could poll the commission tonight to see if anybody would be on board with a peer system. And,
Okay.
I personally prefer it over the enclosed foundation, because if you do, I know you mentioned building code calls it a storage space, and they have a minimum height requirement, which is probably 7 feet, like you said. But why couldn't this be a frost wall? Not to say you would have to provide the 7 feet. You go with a frost wall foundation, and you're basically with crawl space type thing, but you still get your compensatory storage. And I think Alea was getting at was how much does this flood will fill up with water? too?
Yeah.
How much does it actually have to?
yeah, you want a couple feet for,
Yeah, it's about,
It was like a couple
but-
feet, right?
yeah, it is actually less than a couple of feet.
Yeah, so.
okay, so yeah, even if you did 4 or 5 feet, it would be uncomfy for an adult human to be wandering down there. But you'd still be getting your flood storage, and it would still probably have enough wiggle room that you could mitigate the mold collection.
I guess we could look into, like I said, these are all alternate solutions.
Yeah,
But I honestly don't, I feel like I've done, a lot of spendings here already, so I don't want to keep going in back and forth.
Yeah.
If, I think getting a poll from the, looking at this as 2 lots, because we're not going to look at it as 1 lot.
yeah, okay, so that's off the table, you're not looking at one?
Yeah.
No, so that's not gonna be an alternative. All right, I'm just gonna poll the commission.
May I ask Scott a question?
Sure.
Scott, can you talk to, since you have experience with this system, can you talk to what happens when the flood recedes? And I presume that there is still some water left in there and it has to dry out. What does that look
With the
like?
openings as opposed to the pier system, right? Is that
Mhm.
that's what you're referring to?
Mhm.
So the design as shown on the foundation plan has them set at grade. So there's not a lip in the interior space.
So it's not
prohibiting
just,
the drainage.
so, and it would be graded in inside that so that the water would drain
There would have
out.
to be a very gentle pitch, you know,
Right.
in that direction, and there's no lip, so it's not like you're creating a bathtub effect of holding water underneath there.
As a matter of fact, we brought that up to the engineer.
Yes, you did.
To pitch that, because he didn't have an answer when we said, you know, how's the floor gonna drain? And he didn't answer. I said, well, you're gonna have to pitch it.
We have a pitch.
Yeah, I know, now you do, but that was due to our comment.
Okay. And then I presume that the soil is going to stay moist.
The soil around the foundation?
What's the bottom of this? Is it a cement slab?
Concrete.
It's concrete?
Yes.
Okay. So that will stay damp for a while. Is there a circulation system that would help it dry out after a flood? Or is just the action of the air sufficient to demoisturize that enough to lower the risk of developing mold?
So traditionally, these are built with, you know, the airflow, that's why you have multiple units, right, so that air can pass through. You know, perhaps there's an air exchange system that could be installed that a builder could contemplate if they felt they needed to. That's not normally done in these situations. The normal openness to the surrounding air is adequate. In many cases, like how you might vent an attic space and have, you know, gable end vents or something like that in an attic space, something to that effect going on, but at the basement level.
Okay.
And perhaps it happens, I haven't heard of a widespread problem with, you know, flood opening spaces, creating mold, you know, inducing environments. Maybe that's a thing, but if it is, it's not widespread enough that I've been aware of it being a problem.
Okay. Thank you.
Getting back to the question on the piers, is that something, which would you prefer, full foundation like this or a pier setup?
In all honesty, I would prefer the piers. I am intrigued by this. I see it as a potentially viable option, but I don't think the rest of the commission is there. So I'd be fine with piers. And I'm not gonna worry about bobcats.
All right. Jason?
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with piers or, you know, I don't fault this solution at all. I think it's good, right? I just don't think 7 feet is good, because I think that asks for people to store a whole lot of stuff down there, and that will cause issues. I think if you had a frost wall and enough space for these openings to move of a few feet, I think you get some. I just think 7 feet is asking far too much. I think you're relying on the people who are gonna buy these houses, Rashid, to not go down there, and we all know that's not gonna happen, right? They'll go down, they'll store stuff. It may cause problems, it may not, but I think if you limit that.
I hear your concern, however, honestly, there are certain things we do our best, and then what homeowners do, they do it anyway. And
I
you know,
hear you.
we have
Don't give them the
conservation laws.
opportunity.
And
You
I
don't wanna
agree
give
with
them
you.
the
That's the
opportunity.
reason we're trying our best.
Yeah, no, and I wholeheartedly agree with you. I think that's what we're trying to stop now, right? A homeowner doing something that could cause everybody an issue.
Or the next homeowner, or the
Or
next
the- yeah.
homeowner.
Okay, so I got.
Yeah,
I got it.
I
You
would be
could go with a.
I'd go with
frost wall
pier or frost wall with,
Or that.
if that works.
No, let's see what they bring in. I don't know. See what
Nope.
they, I'd have, let's see
You'd
what
have to
they.
take a look at what they
Right.
come in with for the, Chris, do you have any preference?
Conceptually, the piers would be okay, but
Yeah, all
I
right.
agree with Ken.
Well, that's a poll of what the commission's thinking tonight, Rashid. I guess we'd have to talk, one of the things, like Jason said, talk to town council on the restrictive covenant, Jason.
Well, I
That
mean,
would be,
if you did piers,
Yeah.
I don't think we
this was the
need
way-
it, we don't need any covenant.
Yeah.
Right.
It's gone.
Well, you're still gonna flood the garage still becomes, it's not gonna be on piers, the garage. In the garage,
We honestly, we have to redesign.
What's
We have-
that?
We have to we have to redesign and present it to you. We're gonna look at piers or lower
or frost wall.
for frost.
Yeah.
I mean, it won't be exactly frost, it has to be a few feet above.
Right,
Right.
right, right.
But I hear the board, if we're gonna go back.
Right.
And then honestly, I'd rather not deal with this covenants because Jason bring, issues. Why add more to the town council if we're
Yeah.
gonna really go in that direction?
But,
And I don't know if town council would sign off on it, quite honestly, none of us do.
but there's, before we totally give up on it, can you check just that the homeowners association route would work between that, coming up with something? I mean, it's better than nothing.
I don't know about homeowner association because now we're dealing with adding another layer for the homeowners. That's the reason I'm not building townhouses.
No, I realize that, but it's getting this in the hands, if somebody goes to buy Rashid's house, this is gonna show up, as a covenant that goes along with the title, so it makes them question, is this the right house for me? With these kind of restrictions, I can't put my fertilizers. Now, Rashid, we're forgetting the garage, because one garage is going to flood, right? One garage doesn't flood, if I remember
Correct.
correctly?
So I think, Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, if we're gonna change the elevation we then will look at the whole thing.
Okay,
We won't just come back with you piecemeal. We heard you last time, even though I was not here.
Okay.
But we are going to look at, can we really, do some redesign and take even the garage, so-called,
Okay, okay.
outside of the floodplain.
yep.
So if we're gonna change the elevation, things do change.
Yeah.
That's what I did discuss with my engineer,
Well, that would be good.
yeah.
So you guys have a long agenda tonight. We've
Yeah.
taken up more than our fair share of
Yeah.
time. So we'd like to request a continuation of this meeting. We're
All right.
gonna, we'll discuss, among the project team, if we either move ahead with the current application
Right.
and likely get a denial to go to an appeal, or redesign with the frost wall situation, or come back with a pier system.
Yep.
Those are kind of the options I
Correct.
see on the table.
Yeah, and I appreciate Rashidi went on record saying he's not gonna look at a single home on these two lots. I mean, we know where he stands there, and can take that into consideration too. Just before we move on, do any of the neighbors have anything to say tonight? We're gonna continue the hearing. So,
I'm gonna, where the covenant is concerned,
can you just state your name and,
Elaine Stillovich.
Use the microphone too.
yeah, the microphone, Joe, you gotta come to the mic so that we can catch it on tape.
Elaine Stillovich, 37 Everett Ave. Where the covenant is concerned, you can't depend on us neighbors. We're not gonna squeal or be tattletales or patrol. But, again, as you were saying, you don't wanna put stuff on the taxpayer, Jason.
Right.
I'm sitting there thinking, oh, the town's gonna create another department to patrol. The town has had covenants. There are different areas of the town with covenants. And there are homeowner associations that do go back to I believe, the builder. So it would be up to Rashid then to patrol, right? Patrol and maintain,
Well, yes,
or hire someone to do that for him.
I mean, Rashid's got counsel, so I'm not gonna speak.
Yep.
For Attorney
Yeah.
Duffy, but what I will say is, certainly, he could potentially set up a homeowners association or a condominium association
And I'm
and have that
assuming,
travel, but if there's only two houses, they can agree as the association to disband it.
okay, one question though, if there was a homeowners association, who do they report to?
Themselves.
The town?
No.
Oh, it'd be themselves.
That's the
So
reason I defeat the purpose.
Then there could be a conspiracy or whatever, and
Yeah.
don't tell them that I have a paint can and vice versa. No, but I mean, where this property is concerned, I mean, I've listened to the dampers. Now, dampers operate off of pressure, correct? Pressure. Now, there's no pressure because it's standing water. So it's not moving water where those houses are being proposed. So I know when I'm down in my lower property cleaning my gutters, what do I have in those gutters? There's no water, but I have trees growing in the sediment, correct? So I'm up there pulling out sediment, so I'm assuming that we're gonna have sediment that sits in those drainage areas or that portion of compensatory storage area. So, again, we've also discussed maintenance of the dampers, maintenance of who's gonna clean out those particular egresses or whatever, because you're gonna have to run a hose in there and somebody's gonna have to scrub that sediment out. It's food for thought.
Okay.
I don't,
But I mean-
Scott, I think please correct me if I'm wrong, the system is screened, so sediment's not coming into the house, into this space. It would just be water.
We're not collecting debris.
Yeah,
Correct.
no debris
Water-
passing through.
But dust is sediment. Dust will get through. Water carries particulate. Of course, particulate's gonna get in there. And then you're gonna have the dampness again, and then the mold. So, but I'm in agreement, if you're gonna do something, put it on piers. But again, I have a house on piers across from me that's 10 feet wide and 60 feet long. So I'm looking at, my house that we take so much pride in is looking at a bird cage, 10 feet wide. I'm looking at 10-foot wide house with piers. The place is a mess. They've got stuff all over the yard. The other house that's in the 100-year flood zone that was allowed to be built, they cut all the trees along the brook. I'm sure they didn't come before you people and ask permission to cut all those trees. It's all dirt and sediment running into the brook.
Okay.
All garbage in the backyard that flows into the
No, I know,
brook.
I know. Well, we're
And I'm
talking about
picking up-
Rashid's lot tonight.
No, I know,
so,
but
yeah.
I'm
So
just
we're
saying.
working on that.
Square.
So,
Yep, and we
You
hear
know.
you. So we're gonna, anybody else want to speak tonight quickly, or we have to move on? We've got a
Okay.
lot of hearings. Thank you.
that's it, yep.
Thank you.
Meetings continued until April 18, 2023.
Thank you very much.
Yep, thank you. Martha, do you want to read, it's a new hearing?
I'd be delighted. We have a new public hearing regarding the notice of intent filed by Plug Power, 968 Albany Shaker Road, Latham, New York, 12110, for the construction and installation of hydrogen storage and compression system pad and associated tree removal and site work at 4244 Bowditch Drive.
Do we have the applicant here for that?
We do.
Do we have our green cards for notification on
About-
the abutters? Do you have it, Alea, for this one?
Let me check, because they might have come through already, since they came, last month. Let me see if they were in the drive.
What do you need?
It's the butter notification.
Notification, proof of mailing.
Are you the engineer? Why don't you
No, I'm
introduce
the applicant.
yourself? Oh, you're the applicant
Yes.
itself? Okay. Who filed your notice of intent for you?
I did.
Okay. There's a requirement to notify the abutters of your parcel?
Yeah, I have a copy. I can mail it to you guys from the service. That takes that out.
From, again, what did you do? You have a copy of what?
Of the mailing, of the publication, of the notice. I don't have it. It's on my computer. I can get it if you need it. I didn't understand you guys needed that tonight.
Yeah, I mean, you have to notify each abutter individually, and you did do that? You sent a
Understood.
letter out? Did you send a letter out to them?
There's a service that was engaged, and we paid the service.
Oh, okay.
They send it out to whoever needs to get it.
All right, and we'll go on the premise that you've done that, okay?
Yeah, I can send it after the meeting, just after, if you need a copy of it.
Okay.
That would be great,
Yeah,
thank you.
do that, please.
I apologize. I didn't realize you needed
Yeah,
it.
because if it's not intact, then we have to scrap the hearing and start over again.
I definitely did it.
Okay, I hear you.
I have been through this a few times now, and
All right, again, why don't you introduce yourself and,
so my name is Paul Grady. I'm a department manager for the general program that we have with Plug Power that installs hydrogen infrastructure and fuel cells in distribution centers, automotive factories, et cetera, for the use mainly to replace lead acid batteries, lithium ion batteries, et cetera. Powers fuel cells for all of the forklifts, tuggers, personal industrial trucks, if you will, is our main kind of bread and butter. What we're doing here in Shrewsbury is we have a client, Nels Velma, over in Shrewsbury, 4244 Bowditch Drive, which is just adjacent to the water department, I believe. And they have selected to entertain our service to install and replace their old and aging fleet of lead-acid batteries as a green power initiative. The selected site by the property owner happens to be inside the wetland buffer. It's about 100, the corner of our disturbed area is 100 feet, just over 100 feet from the wetlands. Off of the property line by 85, 88 feet. And we have explored other options, alternative refueling areas on the property lot
These are not up to.
with the customer, and they don't want to proceed with anything that would either encroach on parking space for employees or that can be visible from the road, because there's some other restrictions in terms of visibility, privacy fences, et cetera, from their zoning. So they're limited on the current parking they have. There's very few spaces that they can give up due to the square footage of their facility, even though their employee count's nothing near what they already have for parking lot. So this is kind of how we settle back in this corner, and unfortunately it is within this wetland buffer. Because it is hydrogen, we need to do some tree removal to remove the combustibles within a 30-foot zone of the bulk liquid hydrogen storage tank. This is why we're here today, is I'm looking to gain approval. We are just probably 10 foot into that 100-foot buffer that we would need to remove trees, and then the rest of them are outside the 100-foot buffer zone. We did engage Tetra Tech to come out and do updated wetland delineations and data sheets for that. That has been incorporated. The wetlands have been flagged, confirmed, and updated on our revised plans, submitted. We've submitted the stormwater report, I believe, and that's under review. The data sheets have been submitted. And I can walk you through kind of where we're at on this, or I don't know if you guys have had a chance to go through the plan.
Can you tell us what is the resource area that the 100-foot buffer zone is based off of? Is it a brook or is it the lake?
It's a little stream.
It's just the stream, okay.
Yeah.
Is that stream Poor Farm Brook?
Yes.
Yes, I believe so. Sounds familiar? I didn't know I had a name.
Yeah, 'cause that's the reason we postponed it last time, because they hadn't identified the riverfront or paid the fees associated with the riverfront, so that's why we recommended it was
That's the
postponed.
major change that's been made in the plans. The digital version on the drive is the updated version, but I don't have physical copies of the updated version, which include the riverfront area and the riverfront outer riparian zone line. His addition hopefully has those on it.
Yeah, we've updated based on, so middle of last week, right in the middle of the big snowstorm, we had this scheduled to get it done. So some of this has been delayed slightly because of the weather, unfortunately, to get you guys a more advanced copy. But we have reflagged based on the wetland survey that was just carried out by Tetra Tech last week.
Yep.
That's been reflagged and updated on our plans.
So what Martha was getting at, I think, Martha's perennial stream triggering riverfront, right? So not only are you dealing with the 100-foot buffer zone, but you have the inner riparian zone and the outer riparian zone?
Yep, and those have been flagged on the updated.
Okay, so this work is really mainly outer riparian zone, with the exception of that 10 feet of clearing inside of the 100-foot?
Yeah, exactly. Our 100-foot buffer, our physical land disturbance, if you will, is outside of that. But because we need to remove combustible material within that 30-foot buffer of the bulk liquid storage tank per the International Fire Code,
Right.
we will have to engage into that 100-foot buffer.
Inner riparian zone is the bigger concern. You'll be in the inner riparian zone, which has very limited, it's supposed to be an untouched zone.
Yes.
So, is there any possibility you could push this so that you're totally with clearing outside of that 100-foot to slide it?
We've looked at it.
Yeah, it's what, 88 feet now?
Is it 88, Chris?
That's what it looks like. Do you run into any problem, you bring it closer to the building, I guess is what John's asking.
Yep.
We do. We do. There is certain setbacks from Factory Mutual from distance of sprinklered and unsprinkled buildings. We should be more than 120 feet, which is what we have right now. It's 123 feet now. I mean, we could shift it just a little. The concern was, I really have to cut down the trees that are tall enough that could, in the event of a storm or whatever, fall onto the pad. So that kind of pushes us just into that zone now.
Well, in theory, if you moved it toward the gravel drive more, it'd still be the same distance away from the building, but away from the wetland.
Yeah. We have, you're talking about moving it, say, south.
South and west. South and east, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so there's an existing giant stormwater retention pond here.
Oh, is there?
We can't really go too
Oh, I
much
see it.
farther south because of the existing stormwater basin.
I got you. I see it now.
How
Didn't see
much
that.
could they go, Chris? Could they do?
It could go along the gravel drive, right?
There is no gravel drive.
On the map I'm looking at, it does.
It's 137 feet from the property line.
Yeah, from the 137 point. Yeah, from the property line, it's 137 feet. You can move it closer to the property line. Get it away from the building and away from the wetlands.
Supposed to. No alteration.
I don't think so.
We're very limited.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm looking at, let me see which plat I'm looking at, because I blew it up.
Yeah, just a point of clarity, we think he's actually in the outer riparian, it's not really clear from the plans, but,
Okay.
so it's not as bad.
He might have to revise it.
What plan are you actually, plan number, are you working off of right now?
So this is drawing C001.
C001?
That's just your overall site map.
Oh, is it?
We can have a few to zoom in.
It goes right into the piece here.
C,
Oh, here it's.
C002.
There's no wetlands line.
We have C002.
Does that include the riverfront line as well, the zoomed-in version?
No,
Okay.
So if they moved it.
we just put the limits of the riverfront area.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, that's what I meant.
Yes, yes, that runs, the 200-foot basically has been updated
This
to
one.
show the wetland
they could
buffer
slide
100 foot, and then the 200-foot
This
riverfront
way.
offset.
And then you're away from.
So the difference between those two is the wetland buffer zone is it's a different distinction than the riverfront. The riverfront area, that 200 feet, is an actual resource area. It's not a buffer, it's the area you are intending to protect, under the regulations set in place. So that's why that
There's no
distinction
way
was
we can get out
necessary.
of that.
Yeah, exactly. But, yeah, just to tell you
Yeah, sorry.
why we're more concerned.
Crossing language, I guess.
Yeah,
So you can't move it out of in the riparian or something, well, there's nothing. we
No,
can do.
if we're talking that, so if we just talk the riverfront area, and that line runs pretty much right through the pad and is to the north and the northeast. So that river runs kind of back behind us. I would have to take this whole pad and move it out into the parking lot, which is not suitable for our client.
Yeah, well, we're constrained by the regulations, though. That's the problem. Work within the inner riparian zone is very, very limited. I'm gonna have to go back to the regs and take a look, what would actually be allowed, but I don't believe clearing's an alteration. And, I just think you have to get it into the outer riparian zone, and then you're limited by a percentage of how much of the outer you can actually disturb too, so.
Isn't it is all?
I think that's what we're trying, I think it is in the outer riparian, it's, the problem is the plans are not clear.
Other than the 10 feet of clearing on the inner, he's saying it's,
How,
Because
So we have the wetland buffers, we're not in the wetland buffer, the 100-foot wetland buffer, we're outside of that. And then we have the riverfront area, the 200-foot setback from the riverfront.
yeah, so then they're in the outer riparian.
Well,
I think a
well,
separate wetland has been flagged in addition to the, is that,
Yes.
is that clear?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Okay.
So there's the wetland buffer for the BVW, and then there's also the riverfront. So there's
oh,
two
okay.
wetlands
I
of
gotcha, I
concern
gotcha.
on the site.
Okay,
So we reflagged, and it's on the town of Shrewsbury's property, actually it is, and we obtained approval. So Tetra Tech has gone out last week and flagged, and given us the coordinates and everything for the wetland. So then we have the 100 and the 200-foot zone off the wetlands. And we've also updated the limit of the riverfront area within the 200 feet, which is closer than the wetlands. So the wetlands is out. We are 150, 185 feet away from the wetlands itself. Then but we're still within that 200-foot buffer of the riverfront. So we have two separate things that we have flagged and identified that have been concerns that have been raised. We're trying to make sure that we identify exactly what those zones are here.
So you think you're within that 200 foot from the river?
We definitely are. So on the plans here,
See it
here
now.
is the 200-foot riverfront line. We've added those.
okay.
We are 3/4 of our installation is within that.
Wetlands.
So I guess the proposed area is sitting right.
She's got it over there.
The proposed area is sitting right here,
This is
just adjacent to the basin. So we have, basically you have your property line is in red. These are the updated and flagged wetlands.
Is it possible if you could come up to the desk here for a second and just show me, what I'm trying to do is still determine where this 100-foot riverfront line is, or the 200-foot. Here's your 100-foot wetland buffer, and I understand now that's based off the vegetation that you flagged separately from the riverbank. Okay, and I can see that.
There you go.
Yep, so
Oh, good, okay.
in our plans here, we've added this based on the recent surveys that were done. So this is the 200-foot buffer right now of the river.
Okay, and and the 100 would be,
And the 100-foot here is the distance off of the newly flagged wetlands.
all right. Where would the 100 riverfront zone be? Is it off-site on the,
It is.
up there? So
Yes.
you're between the 100-foot and 200-foot. You're in the outer riparian zone is what I'm getting at.
Yes.
Okay,
So
that's good news.
good.
That's good news.
I apologize for the confusion.
Yeah.
How diagonally wide is that?
This is about 50 by 50,
Okay.
roughly. So here's, I don't know, maybe 15 feet, and you've got,
Okay.
that other zone is gonna be, if you want it, we could add it on the updated plans, it's gonna be here somewhere. Because the river, I think on your other,
100 feet, the inner riparian should be right behind it,
Right behind the
where the
100 foot
100-foot
zone?
buffer line is.
so then in the picture from
So either
Tetra Tech, it
riparian's in
actually
the
has
wrong
the
place.
riverfront, that's green and triangle, I think, and that's behind the wetlands here.
The question comes up is.
If you're taking down trees or proposing to taking down trees, are you putting anything in their place?
It cannot be combustible vegetation. So
There
it
is
would-
no non-combustible vegetation.
Well, there is, technically speaking, there is. like manicured grass is okay. You can't have dried shrubs and grass, tall grass and whatnot, like, so basically it's gonna be landscape. It'll be graded down, and then it'll be landscaped, just with grass, and then it'll be maintained by the property owner.
Okay.
Anything else, Martha?
Nope.
Jason?
Curious, how much hydrogen is sitting there?
So, this is a 10,000 gallon tank. There's roughly, in the tank, it's never full and it's never always liquid.
Right.
It's roughly 8,500 gallons of liquid hydrogen at full.
And is it trucked in then to
It's trucked in, yep.
fill?
Yeah, so we have our own trailers, our own delivery network that we would truck it in.
No other questions?
Ken?
I'm just concerned about if we're able to clear in the outer riparian zone and how much we can do. That's what's not clear to us. Now, I think what you're doing is fine. It's just that, are we allowed to do what you want to do in the space that you're presenting it? So that's not clear to me tonight, that we can do that. We need more information. We need somebody to say, yes, this is the percentage, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it. And if it needs to be moved in a certain area away, you might have to look at another area where you're out of riparian zone.
So how, I guess for my own clarification too, how do you want that calculated for percentage? Because, I mean, this is all.
Based on the regulations.
Yeah, it's up to 10%.
If I-
Up to
Of
10.
the whole
Total.
entire property?
I believe so, and that's, we have to go back to the regs to just verify the wording on it, but I think, like Ken said, you have to look at this whole site too, and what's in the outer riparian zone for this site. You can't just take your little piece and calculate that. You have to look at what's in the outer riparian zone, and it can't exceed a certain percentage,
Okay,
okay?
but it's of the entire property,
Of the entire parcel, I believe,
Mhm.
correct?
parcel only?
It would just be the riverfront on your property, yeah, not.
Okay, there is no riverfront on the property. There's a zone that
No,
that
so
comes into it,
the
but-
inner and outer riparian are not buffers, they're physical resource areas, so you do have, the 200 foot is on your property,
Okay.
so you've got a certain percentage of riverfront on the property that you can disturb,
Understood.
so.
All
But
right,
it's of the riverfront zone, correct? The 5%
Yes.
of the zone. It's in the wetland regs too. That's, we go off the state wetland regs. It's pretty specific there.
I mean, Tetra Tech should be help you
yeah,
calculate that for you.
no, absolutely.
You all second?
Yep.
Chris?
I'm okay.
Andy?
Yeah, that was our biggest thing, was the resource areas we were missing, so we just need to figure those out, now we have them.
Leah?
Yeah, no, that's
Anyone in the public have any questions or comments on this hearing? All right, I don't see any tonight. Continuance till
Is
the
there any
next.
way we could do a conditional approval?
No.
You need, I would definitely have your wetlands person come here, make the presentation or give us the numbers, the percentages of
Yeah.
where you are within that zone. And if we can in fact do it in accordance with the regulations, we need to know that.
Okay.
Yeah. Are you actually out of New York? Are you based in?
Yes.
Oh, so you came all the way from New York to do this?
Yeah. Left at 1:30 today to appear in front of you guys.
I hear you. No, it's a
Try and
tough
get your
one.
approval.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna have to continue it. There's no way to approve it without knowing the percentages tonight, and we can't conditionally approve it because it may not be a valid project, and, as shown.
Well, if it doesn't meet the conditions, we.
Well, I mean, the resource areas too, there's just too many questions right at the moment,
Okay.
so. No, this would not be something we would conditionally approve at this stage,
Okay,
okay?
understood.
All right, so we'll continue the hearing until our next meeting, which is April 18, 2023. And if you can, like Chris said or Ken said, to bring in your wetland guy next time to go over the resource area and the percentages,
Okay,
it would be helpful. Okay?
will do.
Okay, thank you.
I appreciate your time.
You're not driving back tonight, are you?
I certainly am.
Oh, bro. Good luck.
Safe.
Thank you.
You ready for the next one?
Yeah, it's a new one. Yep, Martha, please.
Notice is hereby given in accordance with the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, that Michael Clemmy, 111 Moore Street, Massachusetts, 02062, has filed a notice of intent for the construction of an automobile dealership with associated grading, site work, retaining walls, and stormwater mitigation at 701 Boston Turnpike. Public hearing will be held on the above notice at 7 PM on Tuesday evening, March 21, 2023, in the Selectmen's Room at Shrewsbury Town Hall. This is just...
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. I'm Patrick Healy from Thompson Whiston Associates, civil engineer for the project. With me is Tim Toomey. He's a director of construction for Subaru of New England.
Evening. Thanks for having us.
So as you probably know from the news and the other public hearings that we've attended in town, Subaru of New England proposes to build a new dealership for Patrick Subaru at the intersection of South Street and Route 9. It's a 25-acre site there on the corner. We're proposing to develop about 13 acres of that within the commercial district. But some of the stormwater measures do extend into the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland along South Street, and that extends a little bit into the residential zoning district.
They're all
Patrick,
set
you
with
have
their green
the-
cards.
You have the green cards?
Yeah, we got the certificate mail.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I should have said
Green cards?
I had sent the certificate of mailing to
It is all set.
Ms. Kessler.
Okay,
We're due.
thanks.
So this is an overview of the site. Route 9 is here at the bottom of the screen. South Street is up this way. This is Brentwood Drive here, which goes into Fox Farm Estates. And there's a little bit of a living vegetated wetland here that extends onto the site. So what we're looking at is a buffer zone that extends up the hill from that.
Patrick, what sheet, can you tell us what sheets you're going off of to so we
Oh,
can
I'm sorry.
follow with you?
So the overview is on sheet C 1.1.
Okay, yep.
Showing you the overall layout of the site and where the building and parking is located. The zoning district is here. This is the commercial business district, residential to the north and west.
2.1 has the buffer zone on it.
Is it 2.1?
So you put 2.1, yeah, or what you want to look at.
So I'd like to add, Mr. Chair, that we have been to the zoning board of appeals and to the planning board, so we have benefit of a special permit for the use and site plan approval from the planning board. So this, I'm now looking at sheet C 2.1, which is the overview of the grading and stormwater system. So here you can see we're doing quite a bit of cut here at the top of the site. There's a number of retaining walls that sort of plateau down the hill, and then towards South Street, and then down here we have two stormwater ponds, one here and one here. The grading for this northerly pond extends into the 100-foot buffer zone. So the stormwater isn't actually stored in the zone, but the fill for the containment dike extends into that 100-foot buffer zone. And then there's a discharge point there that would flow down toward the wetland.
So the resource area is off-site?
The resource area is on-site, so there's a BVW line
In the
shown
back.
right here at the
Yep.
corner, northeast corner. The 100-foot buffer zone extends into the site. So that's the only resource area we're looking at. So it's a pretty small area of buffer zone alteration. More importantly, I think, is compliance with the stormwater standards. So we have completed a stormwater management design, submitted the stormwater report. It's been peer reviewed by Graves Engineering for the planning board. And we made a number of modifications to that system through the permitting process and the review process. So that particular pond I was pointing out has been moved away from South Street to accommodate some discussions with the neighbors across the street to save a natural buffer between the cleared land and the multifamily project across the street. And we've changed a number of the stormwater ponds and measures through the review process with Graves Engineering. So what you're seeing, this submittal is made after those changes have been made. So if I could just explain our stormwater system, we're taking the roof runoff from the 1 acre of roof, essentially, putting that into 3 different structured infiltration systems under the parking area. One here at the southwest of the building, one at the northeast, and then one partially down the slope here, just above pond number 2. And then there are 3 stormwater surface ponds proposed. One here at the westerly driveway to Route 9, one at the southeast corner, and one at the northeast corner. So those 2 on the easterly side of the site are located in a different soil unit than the majority of the site. So for most of the steep part of the hill where we're reworking the earth, this is glacial till material. But when we get over to that eastern side of the property, about 200 feet of that property is in a sandy soil. So we've done a number of deep soil tests out there and find that that's highly permeable soil. So that's why, the stormwater infiltration measures for the majority of the parking area have to be in that soil unit.
Patrick, just hold on the drainage off the roofs. You have 3 infiltration, subsurface infiltration areas. This is really an eye test, these plans.
Well, this is just intended as an overview, Mr. Chair. If you
Yeah.
flip to the next sheet, you can see it at.
Yeah, it's really tough to read.
So at this
What's
scale, it
the,
might be easier to see.
yeah, what's the type of infiltration?
I'm looking at sheet C1.2 now, which is the 40 scale plan.
C 2.2, did you say?
C,
1.2?
2.2.
sorry, C2.2. Thank you.
2.2, okay. That's the one we're on. What type of infiltration basins are you talking about? I know there's 3 of them, and
So these are the 3 for the roof runoff
Yeah.
that I mentioned are essentially excavations filled with stone and use some large diameter pipe to get additional volume of storage. So through those, we can get the first inch of runoff.
you talking like Caltech units,
Well,
or
these are actually perforated 24-inch pipes.
just 24-inch pipes perforated and set in stone?
Yes.
Okay.
They could be substituted with the Caltech system if the contractor chooses to do that.
Mm-hmm.
In our opinion, at this point in time, because of supply chain issues and cost escalation, the 24-inch pipe is an easier product to specify, shall I say. We know it's available widely, it's easy to obtain. They can be field drilled with a 1/2-inch drill if you can't find the perforated pipe. It gives a contractor a little more flexibility in meeting the standards.
Okay, so you come off the roof, you go into,
Like 3 different sections of the roof come off into those systems.
Yep.
So here, there's some dashed lines shown
yep,
where the roof is separated into those 3 systems. So here on the west side of the roof, there's a discharge pipe that comes out here. Close to Route 9 here, there's a system under the display area. You can see there's a dashed rectangle.
okay, so we're talking,
So it says it's labeled Pond 11 infiltration basin.
yep,
It's under the display parking. And then if you go to the northeast here, there's one that's labeled Pond 31 infiltration pond
Yep.
under the parking area.
yep,
And then if you go to the southeast,
on 2.
under this display parking area here, there's Pond 21. So that's where those 3 pipe and stone type systems are located.
So the question is, when you come off the roof, are you going straight, I know there's some drain manholes there, but are there no catch basins on that line?
Correct. Those 3 systems exclusively take roof runoff, so there's no
Okay.
need to provide any separation or treatment prior to discharge to those ponds.
Okay,
So those ponds do reach capacity at some point, overflow into the pipe system
right,
that goes down to those surface ponds that I described.
correct, right.
So, and then our treatment system for the parking lot, we're going into deep sump-hooded catch basins, and then at 4 different points within the site, we're going to hydrodynamic separators that could be a CDS system. We've used a CDS product in our calculations, and we've submitted the manufacturer's information to support the calculations to provide pre-treatment prior to the infiltration system. So one of those is located over here at the southwest, one is located at the northeast, and then there are two heading toward that surface pond to the southeast. Ultimately, the pond to the northeast discharges to the surface toward that wetland. The pond here at the southwest discharges to the surface into a culvert that goes under Route 9. And at the southeast, there's a system where we're detaining the runoff in that pond. We're retaining or infiltrating a certain volume, and then there's some overflow that would go out into the South Street stormwater system. So we've provided calculations showing that our peak rates of flow in the post-developmental condition are lower than in the pre-development condition to meet standard 2. Standard 3, the recharge is met through all of those systems that I've described. Standard 4 is met with the swirl chambers or the hydrodynamic separators, plus the infiltration to get the 80% TSS removal. By infiltrating the first inch of runoff, we also meet the town standard for the phosphorus reduction. We have yet to file our application with engineering. Hopefully we'll do that with all of our permits in place and then make any minor adjustments that might be necessary to comply with the town stormwater standards. The site is considered a loophole, land use with higher potential pollutant loads, so we're using the 1 inch of runoff to size our treatment devices. It's not a redevelopment site. We're not taking credit for any of the existing, the 2 homes that on the property that would be raised, because we're significantly changing the contour of the land throughout. And we have provided an operation and maintenance program. The SWIP will be prepared once we have a contractor on board, so we know who the responsible party is and outline the remainder of the items that are necessary to comply with standard 9. I think standard 10 would be a subset of that, so we also comply with that. This afternoon at 4:44, I received an email from DEP assigning file number to the project after trying to chase that down yesterday. DEP did have some comments on the stormwater system and the separation to groundwater. So there are a couple of items that I need to address. Looking at the seasonal high groundwater that's in the test pits versus the bottom of our basin, in that pond at the southeast corner of the site, I will have to make an adjustment to that and provide a groundwater bounding analysis. We have developed an erosion and sediment control program that phases the earth moving operations.
What sheet?
So now looking at sheet C 4.2. So 4.1 lays out the program in text, describing the phases of construction, inspection, what the measures are that are being used to control erosion and sedimentation. And this, the second sheet shows it in graphic format. So what you see is we're proposing to start excavation here at the top of the hill, but we would clear the property, install a cutoff drain around the top, and then excavate coming down in this direction, and then place some of that fill down here in this direction. So what you see is a series of lines of defense, if you will, between those phases, following the contour of the land from top to bottom. And then in each one of those areas, you see a couple of temporary settling basins. Because we know it's glacial till, we have to limit the slope distance between those exposed areas to be 200 feet or less. So each one of those bands is something less than 200 feet. The settling basins are designed to provide 3,600 cubic feet of sediment storage per acre of disturbed area. As I said, the overall area exposed would be about 13 acres. And then we have the construction site entrance here.
Patrick, hang on, Ken's got a question.
On your slope,
Go ahead.
on the, where you're going to start, you're going to excavate that down to a point? Are you going to stabilize that with the riprap as you go, or what do you intend to do with the slope? I said, because I read in the first part of the, it said riprap slope, 2-to-1 riprap slope. Is that gonna be riprapped?
Yes, sir. So this area at the top of the slope would be riprap. So unfortunately, we have to install that from the bottom going to the top. So that entire excavation has to be conducted in one phase, so we can start that slope stabilization. An important part of that was the cutoff swale that I was mentioning, so we don't have any runoff from the wooded area up above coming down those steep slopes. So that does give us, a 3-month window of time to excavate that 30 feet of earth out, cut that slope back, and then start building that riprap slope up from the bottom. You will notice that halfway up that, there's a drainage swale across the middle. So that was one of the things, going through the peer review with GZA, acting on behalf of the planning board, caused us to make some changes to that riprap slope to provide better runoff management, erosion control. And then at the base of that slope, there's also a swale before we get to the paved parking lot. And then that runs off in both directions. So you end up with a heavily armored slope with multiple, protective measures to prevent erosion. And then you're looking at 4 different terraces, if you will, throughout the site. The first parking lot is quite a bit above the floor of the building, as is this terrace here. The building floor and that first arc are at one level, and then there's one more terrace down below that. So at these lower areas, there are retaining walls being built. So everything to the east of the building is fill, and everything to the west is cut. The cut fill line runs pretty much through the building. So, and for comparison's sake, that's very close to the elevation of the existing house that's out there. I don't know if any of you have had the opportunity to drive up there and look at the site. As you drive up that turnaround by the existing home there, that's about the same elevation as the building. You can just picture that plane projecting through the hill and then cutting and filling on either side. So we're developing the site entrance mat here because we do have to start at the top of the hill with the excavation. That would be up in this area. And then we have a stabilized staging area here so trucks can be loaded. We don't expect we'll be able to use all of the material on site. And actually, there's a net removal required close to 100,000 cubic yards. So that would have to be hauled off-site. That will all go out via Route 9. And then we've provided a number of construction details for the various components that I discussed. The stormwater measures, the site entrance mat, the subsurface recharge system. The same detail would apply to each of those 3 different subsurface systems. Just the outside dimensions change from system to system. And then we've provided some retaining wall recommendations, if you will, showing that these are large block reinforced earth retaining walls. So they would have geogrids going into the slope. These would require a building permit, so they will require engineered plans prior to construction. That was one of the conditions of the site plan approval, but we already expected that going in. I know that developer will consider bids from different retaining wall companies to see which provides a better product before submitting those engineered plans to the town. And then this sheet has a table showing the pipe to manhole connections with all the inverts in one place. Has the details of the outlet control structures for the 2 surface ponds. And I appear to have multiple copies of some sheets, so. there are any questions I can answer, I'd be happy to take them from the commission.
Martha?
I'm going to let the rest of the commission deal with the engineering aspect.
Okay.
I have a comment on the landscaping plan. Thank you for including, I was taking note of how you were going to plant the infiltration basins with the New England wetland seed mix. Thank you for that. You have included forsythia as part of the shrubs in the landscaping. I would much prefer to see that replaced by something that is native and would thus have more wildlife benefit to the area. And the suggestion, just off the top of my head, that perhaps your landscaper could look into would be witch hazel. There is some shrubby witch hazel which has a growth format similar to forsythia. Thank you. That's all I have.
Jason?
My only question is the pond in the southeast portion, right on the corner of Route 9 and South Street. Is there going to be anything around that pond to protect things going into it, such as cars? It's a notorious intersection. As you likely saw, the guardrail is completely crushed right now from somebody going into it recently. If they missed that guardrail, that pond is right there. And if it was full, I would be a little nervous since it's 8 feet deep.
I hadn't considered adding protective measures because there is a guardrail where the road sits higher than the detention basin. So on the South Street side, there's actually a dike that would be built up such that the top of that containment dike is slightly above South Street.
Okay.
So, the car would have to, go over the curb, through the guardrail and up the slope before it got into the pond.
Because nobody drives 70 miles an hour
No.
on Route 9.
I can't speculate how fast people go there.
Thank you.
All set? Ken?
I'm all set.
Chris?
Can you go into any detail on the lighting that'll be used?
I didn't because I was focusing on, wetland protection, erosion control. We do have a lighting plan that was presented to the planning board.
Yeah, I'm just concerned about the spread of the lighting, especially on the wetland side. That's where I'm going with that.
So it is dark skies and it is zero to lot line, right?
Okay.
Yeah, 100%.
Yes, just if I could just show the plan, it shows some sample pictures.
It is an LED downlight that is aimed, so at the lot line we'll have zero.
It'll pretty much stay just on the pavement area?
100%.
Okay.
Since the LEDs, we use them at all our projects.
Right.
So it gives you that LED cutoff, like your headlights, it'll cut it off right at the,
That's
right at the line.
specific.
Yeah, it's very, very good. We used reflex lighting, they gave us the lighting plan with them, and there's a cut sheet also with the actual light that we're proposing for the project. That was-
You had a detailed drawing in here. I just
Yep. You should see. it.
wasn't familiar with the manufacturer, that's all.
Yeah, it's reflex, it's
Okay.
shoebox fixtures.
Zero up there.
Okay.
I didn't have any other questions, though, John.
Okay.
Through the chair, Chris, you caught me off guard with that question.
There's some detail here, and he answered my question, so that's perfect.
Okay, I have a question for you, Patrick. Spillway closest to Route 9, from the infiltration pond, it says Pond 2. The emergency spillway. Where does that, it looks like it's going to go out right onto South Street, if in fact it overflows. Is that correct? Am I
Yes, yes, sir, it will go into South Street if it reaches that level. I would add that it's an emergency spillway. That spillway is set a foot above the 100-year storm, so I'm not expecting it to operate on a regular basis.
All right, but if it does, it's going out into South Street.
It would go into the gutter of South Street and
Right.
continue down that side of South
Right.
Street to the
Yeah.
wetland.
But if it's overtopping, then we've probably got bigger issues in the street anyway.
Well, it will be in the street, and then if it's in.
Yeah, but if it's overtopping a 100-year storm, then
Right.
our street's already going to be probably flooded.
Yeah, the grocery store, potato chips will be going down.
The access road around the top of the dike, typically it's like a 10-foot, it looks like it's more like, is it 5 feet? Am I getting that right?
I believe it's 6 to 8 feet, sir.
Somewhere around there, yeah. It looks like it's about 5 to 6 feet on my scale right here. That's usually meant for maintaining the pond. You know, we have that requirement to get around the top. And I'm not sure, Andy, is it, I think we've called for 10 in the past, haven't we? On that?
It's usually about 10 feet, yeah, I mean, that's probably one of the things we
I
would
mean,
pick up when we do the
Especially if you're
stormwater.
6 feet and you're trying to cut a corner and your rear wheel's tracking, it's gonna track off the slope and,
I think we have to consider what we're trying to accomplish with access, right? So the regular maintenance would consist of mowing. You might have to get a skid steer in there. I think that's a wide enough area. You know, given that you can access it directly from South Street, go up that little slope onto the bench.
well,
It seems reasonable, but, you know, I can look at the details with Andy if you'd like.
yeah, if you can take a look at that, I mean, that's sort of been the standard we've used on all the filings, was a 10-foot, if I can remember correctly, on detention ponds and infiltration ponds. Andy, what do you have?
No, other than to say, we noticed that we don't have a stormwater through engineering, but, you know, we'll be reviewing it on that. As I say, it's mostly just buffer work grading, so it's pretty benign.
I mean, in terms of the overall stormwater management plan,
Yeah, I mean, it's been thoroughly vetted by Grays, but we will do our own review.
you guys gotta take a look at it.
Yeah, we do our own set of eyes when we review it for stormwater too.
All right, Alea?
I just wanted to confirm that beyond the limit of work on the like northwest side is gonna stay just the natural trees that are there now, the forested current.
That is our plan to limit
Okay.
tree clearing.
Yeah, just wanted to, don't want to see it clear cut, you know, or replanted with.
There are no plans to do that today.
Awesome, perfect.
And there was
Love
special
that.
attention made on the South Street side with the retention pond. There was a big concern with the neighbors to make sure that we maintained and left the natural trees that were there. One plan was to cut them all down and plant the trees, but it made more sense, obviously, to leave what's there.
Okay,
So,
wonderful.
that area right there, so.
And you will take special pains to make sure that that line is clearly demarcated? Because
Which line?
where you're stopping, the limit of clearing,
Oh, 100%.
okay?
Yeah.
'Cause there have been issues in the past.
Yeah, no, we're still
Got a
really
little
like.
chop happy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's fun to cut down trees.
yeah. Better to keep them, so. We're cognizant of that fact.
Wonderful.
Patrick, did you say, did planning board close your hearing last time, or is it still open? Are you still on the docket for planning board?
Sir, the planning board closed the hearing and issued its site plan approval.
Okay, so they did close it on the last one. I thought they did, yeah. Okay. All right, let's go to the public. Do we have anyone in the public who wants to comment or ask a question tonight? Well, I don't see anybody. So, with that being said, we still have a stormwater management plan review, right, Andy?
Yeah, but I wouldn't imagine there'd be any substantive changes. I mean, at this point, because typically if Grays reviewed it, then, you know, we don't need to get too
So you
far.
feel comfortable enough?
Yeah,
to
yeah,
close it
I
then?
think, yeah, I mean, our
Okay.
comments are gonna be pretty benign,
All right,
if we do have any, so.
Through the chair, you know, Andy and Vincent are pretty thorough, and we normally do have to tweak a couple of things for their approval to get it issued, so.
yeah, I mean, you're gonna look at the width on the
Yep.
access road on the dike, so would it be okay to keep her open till our next hearing, or would you?
Can we do a conditional change to 10 feet?
It's up to engineering. A lot of times we don't like to get into conditional ones.
I mean, it's not, it's a fairly narrow basin, so I think looking at it, there's probably plenty of access to get in and clean it. It's not like one of those ones that's kind of remote where you can't get to it and you kind of need to get around the whole thing. I mean,
Well,
like I said, you can get access from South Street, so.
You're not gonna get a big machine around on 6.
No, but like you said, it's mostly just lawn
They're gonna
cutting.
maintain this themselves, correct?
Correct, yeah.
They're
Yeah.
gonna do it too.
100%.
But you can get a small bobcat in there.
Yeah, around the top on 6 feet.
Yeah, and usually the remote mowers these days, so.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's not
I'm
an
comfortable,
issue.
yeah, I don't think we need to keep it open.
So we won't make that an issue then, Patrick, okay? The width of the access road around the dike?
Okay, so just address it to Andy's satisfaction.
What's that?
Just to address the issue to engineering satisfaction.
Mhm.
Yeah, as long as they're happy with it. I mean, I think what I'm hearing from Andy right now, the plans as presented, they're okay.
Yeah, I don't think, yeah, I mean, we'll take a
Yeah.
second look at it, but.
So you're good to go.
Thank you.
All right, so seeing no other comments, questions, we'll close the hearing.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for
You're
your time.
welcome.
And another, I'll check.
How's that?
All right, we have on our agenda a continued public hearing regarding the notice of intent filed by Nicholas Suter, 36 Old Brook Road, Shrewsbury, for construction of a retaining wall to stabilize and level the backyard lawn at 36 Old Brook Road. They have asked that we continue the hearing until our next meeting, which is April 18, 2023. All right, Martha, we have a new public hearing, 136.
Notice is hereby given in accordance with the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, that Keith Senior, 136 South Quinsigamond Avenue, Shrewsbury, Mass., has filed a notice of intent for the replacement of a deck with grading and associated site work at 136 South Quinsigamond Avenue. A public hearing will be held on the above notice at 7 p.m. on Tuesday evening, March 21st, 2023, in the Selectmen's Room at Shrewsbury Town Hall, 100 Maple Ave.
Good evening, Kate O'Donnell from Ecotech, representing Keith Senior. The site is on South Quinsigamond Ave, about 1/10 of an acre, and it has an existing single-family house with a paved driveway, retaining wall, an enclosed porch and lawn. And the wetland resource areas on the site consist of the bank of Lake Quinsigamond, which was delineated by Ecotech. And the proposed work is to remove the existing enclosed 2-story porch and to replace it with a 2-story wood deck. The steps leading down from the deck are located approximately 33 feet from Lake Quinsigamond at its closest point. And the proposed work is entirely within lawn and developed areas. And a fence and straw wattle erosion control barrier is proposed at the limit of work shown with the SW line on the plan. And if you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
All right. Leah, we have green cards on this?
Yes. I sent them to you today.
Yeah.
We also have a DP file number, which you received this week. Do
Yep,
you
we
need
got it.
Okay, perfect.
We got it. Martha,
Is that-
Jason,
All set.
Ken,
All set.
Chris,
No questions?
you say all set?
No questions.
Okay. Andy,
Yeah, all set.
Leah,
I had questions. You said the stockpile area would be designated as needed. Do you have a idea in mind of where it might go?
Probably
What might be
within
stopped?
the erosion control barrier to the southeast of the proposed
Okay.
porch.
And then,
That's outside the 30-foot buffer.
wonderful. I don't know if it was mentioned how the footings for the upper porch will be in the ground.
The footings are, I forget I think they're some kind of techno posts, that's it. Metal
Helical
techno-
piles.
Yeah,
Okay. Almost like
all set? Does anyone in the public have any questions or comments on this hearing? All right, I don't see any. We'll close it.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Kate.
You ready, John?
Okay. Oh, Yep, we're all set, Martha, go ahead.
Notice is hereby given in accordance with the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, that Mary J. Holland, 8132 Flint Pond Crossing Circle, Shrewsbury, Mass., has filed a notice of intent to raise and rebuild a single-family home with associated site work and installation of a retaining wall at 332 South Quinsigamond Avenue. A public hearing will be held on the above notice at 7 p.m. on Tuesday evening, March 21st, 2023, in the Selectmen's Room at Shrewsbury Town Hall.
Good evening, again, Kate O'Donnell for the record, representing applicant Mary Holland. So the site as well is on South Quinsigamond Ave, and is an existing, about a tenth of an acre as well, property consisting of an existing single-family house with a paved driveway, and retaining walls and lawn. And the wetland resource areas on the site were delineated by Ecotech, and consists of a fringe of BVW associated with Lake Quinsigamond, which is below the retaining wall on the property. And the proposed work is to raise and reconstruct the single-family house as well as the associated driveway and retaining walls, and other associated site work, including grading and erosion control barriers, and utility connections. The proposed house is located, or the outer extent of the porch at its closest point is about 40 feet from the wetland that was delineated. Also, a portion of the property is located within a mapped priority habitat associated with Lake Quinsigamond, but as all work is located within existing lawn and developed areas, the activities are exempt under the Massachusetts Endangered Species Act. The work is proposed during the lake drawdown, and silt fence and compost sock erosion control barriers are proposed. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you guys have.
Martha?
I'm not familiar with R&D.
Remove and demolish, or raise and demolish.
Right. Get rid of and.
Yeah,
and
basically,
take away.
yeah.
Okay, all right, I'm set, thank you.
All set, Jason?
I'm all set.
Ken?
I'm all set.
Chris?
That's it.
Okay, the retaining walls along the lake,
It's above the bank and above the BVW, but coincident.
all right. My question is, you have one that goes almost the width, it's a narrow lot to begin with, it goes almost the width, but then there's a bit of a break, and it looks like there's another retaining wall, looks like an inverted L.
Yes, that one is not proposed to be replaced. It looks like it, but it's not.
It's heavy than,
Yeah, there's a note though that says replace wall
Okay.
on the other ones on the lot.
all right, hang on, let me just see if I'm reading this right. So, going from the lake up, the first retaining wall, I'm getting to the big one. It says the top of the wall is 359.8, bottom's 358. Is that a new wall? That looks like a new wall, because it says install new modular block.
These two walls here, the U-shaped ones on the Holland property, those are being replaced. This one that's on the adjacent property is not.
All right, yeah, because that's what I was gonna say, it's on the other guy's property.
Yes, they are aware of the work. There is a 1-foot section of the lower retaining wall that is proposed to be replaced that is on the adjacent property. DEP made a comment about that and having permission from that owner of the adjacent property, and so we had them sign the notice of intent form, and I provided that to Alina.
Okay, that's the little piece, segment that goes across the property line.
The 1 foot, yes.
All right, but does that other wall on that guy's adjacent property, does that exist today?
It exists, but it's not being replaced.
Okay, it's existing, it's just staying as is. Okay. Is this is a total tear down and rebuild, almost corner to corner on the lot. In terms of the sewage, from the house, it goes out, I take it, to Quinsigamon Ave?
Yes, the sewer, I thought it was on here. Yep, sewer TBD.
Okay, so it says it's 6-inch PVC. So I take it that must be a gravity sewer from the house, not a pump up?
Yeah.
The grades, yes, the grades show gravity.
It's a gravity sewer, okay, that's good. All right, and it's gotta be town water, I'm certain, too.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Does anyone in the public have any questions or comments on this hearing? All right, I don't see any. We'll close the hearing.
Great.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Kate.
Have a good night.
Arthur?
Notice is hereby given in accordance with the provisions of General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, that Daniel Rowley for the town of Shrewsbury, 100 Maple Ave, Shrewsbury, Mass., has filed a request for determination of applicability for the clearing of brush and small trees at 45 Main Street. A public hearing will be held on the above notice at 7 p.m. on Tuesday evening, March 21st, 2023, in the Selectmen's Room at Shrewsbury Town Hall, 100 Maple Ave.
Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening. Dan Rowley is not able to make it this evening, so I am Joseph Kenny. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Water and Sewer Operations. And I'm here to speak with you folks about some brush clearing at our home farm treatment plant located at 45 Main Street here in Shrewsbury.
Why don't you just give us a little rundown, Joseph, on what you plan on doing for your clearing and why?
Sure. So, and we, everybody has a copy of
Yep.
the site plan and everything. So
Yep.
we have a series of gravel-packed wells in the green shaded area to the right of the treatment plant. And over the years, it's been overgrown. Brush and thicket and vegetation has grown in on the well site around where the wellheads are and everything, and we're looking to clean that up, make visibility better, so we're able to, visually see them, make it maintainable, and able to mow around them, and just generally make it a bit more maintainable.
Okay. Just a question, I know it says brush to be, proposed area to be brush mowed, and then it says trees up to, and 12 inches will be removed, and I think Alea had spoken to somebody and was given a different caliper.
I spoke to Dan, and he said an 8-inch caliper, and then I proposed a 6-inch caliper, just so there's not
Okay.
a boatload of trees coming down.
Okay.
Would there be
if that would be
any
amenable to the
problem with us restricting, the removal to be limited to trees 6, I mean, that's a pretty hefty tree, 6-inch.
Yep, no, our intention is not to clear cut
Yep.
the area. It's more of the brush and stuff that's kind of chest height that
Correct.
kind of limits our vision of this area. Any other, 6-inch round trees and, anything else that's much more, that's been in place there for a while, we will leave.
Okay.
And this would be, basically anything that can be taken down with a small chainsaw or a couple of staff and a brush mower or a small roadside mower or something like that. Nothing, too large to, encroach on the area.
And any stumps, you would just grind them or just leave them in place?
Our intention is just to leave everything in place, leaving the root systems there and,
okay.
Just to clear it down low enough where we can, because we do mow the entire area surrounding the treatment plant. We want to kind of make this area, somewhat mobile, where somebody can just kind of buzz around with the mower and make sure all that stays knocked down.
I hear you, yep. Arthur?
What will you do with the debris?
The debris will probably just stay in place and get mulched up over time.
Okay.
It's not something that we would, generally remove, or if it's heavy enough, we will remove it. Either that, or if we do contract out to a company, they may remove some of the heavier debris, but for the most part, the smaller, anything chipped up or anything like that will just stay in place.
So you would be chipping?
Not so much chipping, but whatever is left over from cutting and, whatever kind of chainsaw work that might be in place.
Okay.
Needed, so. And a roadside mower or like a walk-behind brush mower chops and can, create quite a bit of debris. We're not gonna go to that extent, removing all of that, so.
I would advocate for leaving it all there. I don't think you need to remove anything heavy unless it interferes with the water operations.
Okay.
Okay, I'm all set, thanks.
Jason?
I'm all set.
Ed?
All set.
Chris?
No questions?
Andy?
All set.
Alea?
All set.
Does anyone in the public have any questions or comments on this hearing? It's actually request for
It's an
determination of applicability. So does someone want to make a motion to,
I make a motion, we issue a negative determination for the cutting of trees at 45 Main Street in Brush.
right,
Up
with the restriction to 6-inch?
6-inch DBH.
Yes, 6 inches.
Okay,
Up to 6 inch, yep.
so we got a motion, and we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Don't see any. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You're all set, Joseph.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yep, you're welcome.
Now we're on to enforcements.
Enforcements, what was that?
Sorry.
All right. Let's, you want to go on to enforcement?
Oh, we just say probably should do that since we do have.
Yep. We're going to jump a little ahead on the agenda. We're going to go into our enforcement discussions. And,
You had this one,
yep,
yeah, last.
yeah, well, we're going to hop down here on enforcement right now, so we'll hop back into that after.
Okay.
You can stay. Okay, Alea, do you want to go, who's here tonight? Anyone from 23 Bayview Drive?
Yes, sir.
Okay, why don't we take that one first, Alea?
Yep, that's good.
Alea, you want to just describe what the enforcement
Sure.
issue was?
So this was an enforcement, I actually issued an enforcement order a couple months ago now. They had gone through the permitting system and the permit was to remove the roof of the structure. Somehow all of the roof and the sides of the structure got removed as well. When I attended a site visit, I could not find erosion control in place. The slope to the lake had minimal vegetation on it, and then obviously the debris from the siding and roofing work was about. We have talked extensively about what the course going forward was. I recommended to the I don't know what you would call him, that he come before you guys to kind of discuss what next steps might be necessary, because, most of the work has already been done, and now it's just kind of cleaning up the,
Right.
yeah.
This was done, actually, we had an outstanding order of conditions on this project for the removal of, did you say just the roof, was it, or? And then it went
We did
beyond?
not have we did not have an order of conditions for it. We hit our internal permitting system,
Yeah,
I'm
it's just a
sorry.
building permit.
Yeah,
Just
they
the
had,
buil-
they
just
had a
the-
building
okay.
permit. That had
Okay, so it
gotten,
never came in front of,
so it did not come in front of us, no.
okay, yet the work was within jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission because it being on.
The house is about, is about 50 feet from the
Yeah,
water line.
okay,
So
okay.
yeah, they're within the buffer area,
All right,
yeah.
all right.
Thank you. I did have a site plan done, and it showed that it was 101 feet away. I don't know if that makes any difference or not. I just wanted to.
That makes a big difference.
Yes, that does.
By 1
We're
foot.
aligned, yeah.
Yeah, I have it with me if anybody.
Yeah,
wants
that
to
would be
look
great.
at it.
I don't
Yeah,
think I'd seen that.
yeah, I'm sorry, Aaliyah, I found that after we spoke today.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
Yeah, can you just state your name, please?
Of course, it's Adam, last name is Mason.
Adam Mason?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And should I bring this?
Sure, can you bring it up here, and we'll take a quick look at it? All right. And this is done by, who's it?
It was an online firm, I couldn't, it's called Site Plan.
All right.
Yeah, that's what I was getting. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I'm not
Maybe
sure.
this edge of the house.
101,
Yeah,
and then that's just to property line, and the water is, so it's 101 from here
all right.
to the property line, then.
Well, in the work you're doing on the houses, what are you actually doing? It sounds like you're doing a rehab on the house.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
The roof, the siding wasn't
Yeah.
part of the initial, but they took it off.
Yeah, yeah,
anyway.
yeah.
And then interior, just, nothing like is changing with the floor plan.
Yeah, any disturbance of the ground behind the house at all, or
Not at all, but I absolutely agree to put was it straw?
wattle or
wattle.
something? Yeah. All right. Well, I'll tell you what, if this is actually 101, he would be outside of a buffer zone for filing.
Yeah, I mean, we went out to GIS, it's 50 feet to the lake, so.
Yeah,
that's
some,
quite a
well, something's
discrepancy.
not,
Yes,
something's
that's
not
quite a
lining up,
discrepancy,
so,
yeah.
so what we would have to do, we'll take a tape to it, you know, that sounds like that's gonna be pretty easy to verify here, run a tape, and if it comes out closer to the 50,
Yeah.
you're gonna have to get a permit from us to do the work. It
Okay.
could be a catch-up type thing,
Okay.
but you'll have to do a filing, I think, to make this correct.
Just the roof?
Well,
the
he's
siding.
he's tearing siding off and.
At this point, the siding, it sounded like, or when I did a second site visit, the sides have been repaired now?
Yeah.
Okay, so now it is just the roof? So I don't know how that affects the,
Didn't disturb anything outside at all.
No, sir.
All right. Well, okay, we'll get back to you on this, okay?
Okay.
To see maybe if it can go by just because of the fact he hasn't disturbed anything out there.
yeah, I don't know if you wanted, maybe an RDA could be filed just to keep it on the record, or just to have something on the course.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
I think the issue was, it was the building materials and the debris that was.
Yeah.
Is everything picked up and
Yes,
disposed of?
we had gone through 4 dumpsters. They've been in the front of the house, not on the water side, but everything is
Yeah.
cleaned up.
Or maybe go back, if you could take another
Yeah,
look.
take
at
a-
it.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
planning to do another site visit this week. We've been emailing back and forth a lot today.
Maybe take another look and see,
Yeah.
see and see what it is, and then if maybe you have to do an RDA at the.
Yeah, we could do
And
it
if
by
you-
an
And if
RDA.
you don't, and if
Yeah.
you don't need it and it's done, then don't do it.
Yeah. So we'll go out and take a look at it.
Okay,
and-
thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that something, is this your only copy?
No, I will, Alea, you can have this. I have, this is my only copy. I can-
Do you have a digital copy?
Yeah.
That you can just yeah.
Would that be better?
If you email it to me,
Yeah, I can do that.
that you can
I'll
hold
do
on
that
to
with
that,
you.
and I will get an email and.
Okay, and then let me know what day to come back.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions I can answer?
No, I think that's good, yeah, we'll do a follow-up on that.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Adam. All right, the next one is 20 Tamarack Lane. Do we have somebody?
Good evening, Mr. Chair.
Good evening.
The rest of the committee.
Yeah.
My name's Ron Manzeller, and this is my wife Leanne,
Okay,
and we're the owners of 20 Tamarack Lane. And I'm here in response to a letter that I received about the notice of violation.
Yep.
And I explained to Leah that my intention, was never to do anything wrong, and I'm here tonight to work with the commission and to do what we can do to correct this.
because you guys were in for tree clearing.
Yes.
What was that, within the last year,
About a year and a
2
half.
years ago?
About a year and a half ago.
Yeah, yeah.
So I have some pictures of the dock. And I'll give you a little history on this dock,
Yeah.
if I may.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So we've owned the property since 1991. And that dock was in place at that time. And the actual infrastructure of the dock is two 8-inch steel beams shooting out of the ground and extend about 25 feet into the water with two 3/4-inch cables that, support it. And over time, the beams have been compromised by the weather and rusting and that sort of thing. And 8 years ago, when we had the real heavy storm and snow, it actually collapsed and landed on the ice. So I had to support it at that time, and ever since then, I've been supporting the end of it. And last year, one of the ends got hit. I don't know how. It's a busy area because we're right near the public boat dock, God knows. So when they drained the lake this year, I went in, I put in a couple extra posts and some cross bracing just to try to make it safe. I was trying to look for some old pictures, but obviously that dock was not something you took pictures of. But I did take some pictures today just to show you what it is today. And
So the only new thing you did is put those 2x6s or something underneath to truss up the bottom of the dock?
Okay.
Is that what you did?
What,
What did you do?
This
You
year?
just trussed up the bottom of the dock with some 2x6s or something?
Yeah, well, they're 2x4, yes.
2x4s?
Yes, just to support the end.
But the dock itself has been there historically?
It's been there, yes. And I just added some, so I don't know, I just all of a sudden, I got a notice that some work had been done. It's probably because I put some cross brace,
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at one of these. I can see your steel anchor points on the shore, and I can see the turnbuckle and then the cable running off.
Yeah, that was, I took that picture. The last picture is when it actually collapsed and how it literally bent that I-beam.
Right,
How
right.
much strength
Right, I see
it
that.
took to snap that bolt.
So those cables ran out.
They're about they go out 3/4 of the way, maybe a little further.
Right, and that sort of was holding up your dock.
That's correct.
And was there anything underneath the dock at that point in time?
No.
Or was it totally?
No,
it was
no, it was cantilevered over the water.
Yeah, that was and that sort of became the issue, because now it looks like, taking a look from the boat ramp coming out on the concrete, pier there.
Yes.
It looks like there's a number of piers that set in the water. I think three of them, it looks like, on the side, one on the end, one in the middle, and one closer to.
You're talking about my dock?
Yes,
Yes,
the
there's three
new
of
one,
them.
the new construction out there.
I just, believe it or not, I just added one on each side this year. The others have been there for a couple of three.
Oh, so the ones on the end, you mean? The end was there?
The end ones were there. They've been there for a while.
All right.
Yeah.
And then you added another one closer in toward the shore, was it?
Correct. I put one in between the two of them. And some cross bracing.
All right. Yeah. And how did they get anchored to the bottom of the lake, or how did they sit in the lake?
They're sitting in a 5-gallon bucket of concrete.
Yeah. Which just sits on the lake bottom.
Correct.
Right now.
Do you take those out in the winter?
I don't trust, the I-beams, I don't trust them at all.
Yeah, the issue here, and I guess what we're trying to do too is to prevent this from becoming a matter of normalcy on the lake where other people are gonna try to do the same thing. You're really not supposed to have anything what they deem permanent in the waterway. Again, you hear us talking, if you sat through our meeting tonight, I don't know if you.
Yes, we were here for
you
the
saw
whole
all that stuff about compensatory storage and,
Right.
you know, you're really not supposed to alter the resource area. That's what the regulation says. And our jurisdiction, as you know, because of the tree cutting, you came in and got
I
the
did, yeah,
permit.
right.
Yeah, for the clearing,
My
because
intention is
that
to
fell in.
do things right,
But,
yes.
but the lake is actually the resource, and they're not supposed to be any alteration, and an alteration would be deemed something that could be permanent, you know, considered permanent. And unfortunately, the piers fit that category. The fact that you can't take this out every year, and I understand, I mean, it's a hefty construction. You know, ideally, the dock on a float or some kind of a wheeled assembly where it can be moved out.
Yeah, my neighbors have that.
Yeah, I mean, those are A-okay, you know, they're not considered alterations on the act, but once you start putting piers in, and just because they're not anchored into the lake bottom doesn't mean they're not permanent. They are sitting and taking a permanent space on the lake bottom, and they'll be there as long as you keep maintaining that dock. They're not coming out. So, you know, ideally, and when I say ideally, we really have to look at this to be, you know, removed in a float. Can you do a float system? Would that be your next alternative here to?
That wouldn't be the easiest thing.
Because then to pull it out's not easy.
No, pulling it out, I'm sure I'd have to get a crane in there.
Oh, yeah.
To pull
Could
those
it-
I-beams out and.
Could it stay in place with pontoons or a float system, though?
Oh, yeah, he could put these, take the piers out and put a float, just put her on a float would be okay, and anchor, it looks like what you've done on shore, your I-beams is, you know, we wouldn't have to come in for a permit for that, that's there.
Right.
It's not in the resource area, it's not in the water.
That's been, yeah, I mean, that's been there since we purchased, so I don't even know how far those go into the ground or anything.
Yeah, no,
outside all there.
that's your anchor point, and that's not in the lake, it's not like you have a bulkhead on the lake, you know, where some people have like a wall that they tie their floats to. So you could keep that, and you could use that as a tie point, I think if that's what you're asking, Chris.
Yeah, I was asking if
Yeah.
he would be allowed, I'm not sure of the cost, but if he would be allowed to put a flotation system, a pontoon or something underneath exactly where the trusses are, get the pressure-treated wood out of the water.
yeah, I mean-
And that would be okay.
So just in review of the Lake Quinsigamon Commission,
Yeah.
when you apply for like a new dock and stuff,
Yeah.
it literally says in here that you can, you know, have a standing dock with stuff sitting on the bottom of the lake. I don't know if you've seen that.
You can, but I sit on the Lake Commission.
Okay.
You have to be able to remove it.
Oh,
You know, no, this is permanent.
Or
I see.
at least unmovable.
You have to be able to take, like what John was saying, a lot of the docks that come out are on wheels or on floats, so they take them out in the winter. This is permanently mounted to the bottom, and we understand why you had to do it, because it was.
it collapsed, it literally
collapsed.
collapsed, and now it's unsafe.
Correct. So.
Well, now it's safe because
Because
I did what I did.
Right. So, but what would happen if it froze, over if you had, and you've been there for a while, if the lake froze, it would take that bottom construction that you put in away, and it would fall back into the lake. It could.
Well, those have been there for a while, and, you know, I'm not trying to argue with you.
No, but it could.
It's happened on the Worcester side, where somebody has gone in and they've done a pier-type setup,
Yeah.
and, you know, Ken's on the Lake Quinsigamon Commission, and they said, yeah, the ice came in, they talked to the Worcester Concom about it, and before they could do anything, winter set in, it took it right out, you know?
The only
But-
thing we could say is look at alternatives possibly
Yeah.
to something other than those permanent structures in the water that you could put underneath the dock and maybe take out in the winter. Maybe a float. They make square floats that you could probably put underneath there and it could stay there. You could attach it to the bottom of the dock. You could look at something.
Okay, I mean, do they make the flotation like big enough that would take up that space? Because that sits pretty high in the water.
We could build a little bit of a undercarriage under the dock and then have the floats, coming down to it to meet them. There's ways to do it.
There's ways to do it. I know it's not gonna be easy, but, something like that is not, it's not within the regs.
Would the floats have to be taken out in the fall?
I don't think so. No, because there are a lot of floating docks that stay in the lake during the winter, because they rise up on the ice, or the floats contract with the ice.
Yeah, I mean, when you lower the lake, it's gonna bring that down as well, too, so.
Well, we're not saying you have to do it right now, but it's something that you should look at.
Okay. I will.
Yeah, we just don't want other people, on the lake too, to see it. I mean, it looks, you did a nice job. I mean, the cross bracing.
Thank you.
Yeah, and, people are gonna look and go, geez, rather than monkey with my float, I'm gonna do something like this. And then the next thing is, here we go, we're chasing people down the lake and just don't want this to become the standard. Okay, well, I'm happy you came in tonight, and thanks for.
Yeah, I'm trying to make it right, I'm trying to make it right.
No, you guys, like I said, I know you made the filing, and I said, it's probably something they just didn't, understand, and unfortunately, we regulate so much from the resource area, but you went right, it's right in the resource area, so we can't, we have to do something.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Great, thank
We'll
you,
look
thanks
into
so
that.
much.
Thank you very much.
Yep, bye.
Appreciate your time.
All right,
Need
we,
those pictures, or you?
oh, yeah.
like
you
them
want-
back?
you-
It doesn't matter, I mean, I don't.
Can we keep one
Sure,
set?
Absolutely.
And you can take the rest back? Give one to
Chris,
Alea?
give one to Alea.
Yeah, take it.
Yep, thank you. Yeah, you too.
You too. Thanks for coming in.
All right, we have 7 Purington Street. Alea, you want to give us a rundown on?
Sure. We received a complaint from a abutter that, they said that it was like a drainage system, but there's like a rock wall at the back of the house and then a drainage through it, made of like stone pebbles. When I went out to look at the site, it just looked like like a path had been made with some pebbles, like some, pebble stone had been laid, to kind of turn the space between the driveway and the driveway, stone wall, woods, and wetland. The space between the driveway and through the hole in the stone wall to the wetland had just been turned into a little path. I also noted when I was there that several pretty substantial trees had been taken down, and I just wanted to get an idea of if those could be replaced as well, just because they perform so much function for the ecosystem. So, yes, the
All
initial.
right, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I am John Gamari. I'm the owner of 7 Puritan Street here in Shrewsbury. I'm new to the town here, so this is all new to me. I'm learned a lot today listening to you guys. I do have a picture of the walkway in question if you want to take a look at that. And then I do have a picture of the trees that I took down. You want me to show?
Yes, that would be great if you could bring them up.
So, this is the walkway. I kind of follow the new walkway and kind of put new seed down to there. This is there's a walking path that goes into to this woods here. And I couldn't find any more pictures for the trees I took down. I took about a total of 6 pines down along my driveway. And these are what the conditions that they were in. And they were kind of detrimental of crushing my house. one broke in half, and that's what led me to take them down. It cost me $8,000 to take these things down. That runs along my wall. And my plan is for this summer, and I do have a question for you guys, is do I need to pull a permit to stump grind these stumps so I could plant new growth? Because I have plans to plant some trees and some shrubs and along my wall there.
Okay.
Yeah. Alea, there's a couple pictures here, can you just sort of,
Yes, so here,
okay.
here are the trees, that you're probably seeing. And then the path runs along, you can see the stone wall, the path runs along, and then out into the area behind.
Yeah.
And the wetland is behind the house?
Yeah, the wetland is sort of over here-ish.
Where's the wetland
It
out
looks,
here?
it was noted as a stream, but I couldn't find any other information on that.
So how
I'm
far
not
is the
sure if it
wetland
is.
from where the trees were cut?
I took a slight measurement today with my measuring wheel, and from the first tree I cut was about 90-something feet from that stone wall. But I don't know where actually you measure from.
It's the wetland on the other side of the wall, right?
Yeah,
The
you
wetlands
consider-
on
yeah,
this,
you wanna
the tree
consider-
side of it?
Yeah, yep.
The trees were more just a recommendation because, when those, they're pretty substantial trees, I just wanted to
Yeah.
make sure that they were.
Yeah.
that
So the
was
trees
less
were in the
than-
buffer zone, basically, right?
Yes.
But the buffer zone.
The original, issue was that the stone path kind of went out into the, into the woods and potentially the wetland area.
You know, it's a kind of a path that starts at the end of the driveway. It's only, 1 inch thick of 3/4 crushed
Yeah.
stone. It, kind of.
What's the intent,
diverts
what's the
water.
intent of it? Just to carry water? Is this?
It's not to
is
carry
this-
water at all,
Yeah.
really. It's kind of more aesthetics and,
Yeah.
because there's an opening in the wall.
Right,
And
I
I
see,
kind
yeah.
of just laid that in here, and, here's my, vegetable garden
Right,
here.
right.
And, I kind of just
No,
did
I
a
hear
swig
it.
a while,
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
really no water flow, that kind of.
Right.
kinda watch it.
The one thing that we try to do when, if the wetland's on the opposite side of the wall and it looks like a path going down toward the wetland, it may not be you, but it could be the next homeowner. They end up bringing yard debris down, they'd say, nice opening, stone wall, let's go
Yeah,
down, dump,
Yeah.
and then that's how we start getting, the filling of the wetlands. So, I think maybe what we could have them do, Alea, is remove the stone, would you say, from the path up to the stone wall? Get it?
That sounds fair, yeah.
And the stone on the other side of the wall, that was kind of already in there.
Okay.
And what I kind of did was I kind of raked
Yeah.
the leaves, because it was already stones. The
Yeah.
stone that's on the other side of the wall is pea stone.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and really, I could take that out of there, it's probably maybe about 6 wheelbarrows full.
Yeah, pull the stone back and try to, is there any need for you to go down this, to there?
It's just, there's a path.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can move to the screen, I'll show you, there's
I mean, I think that's actually someone else's property.
Yeah, I was gonna
That's
say.
where we got the
Yes,
call
where
from
do
the
you
other
start?
property.
Oh, once you cross the wall, it's.
Yeah,
it's,
once
Stone walls are usually a good indication of where your property line is,
Oh,
so.
geez.
The
Yeah,
orchard
there's a
meadows.
walking path for Orchard
Yeah.
Meadow Hills, and it starts, I don't know if you can zoom that,
Where are you trying to zoom?
if you can make it just bigger, I can show you.
Zoom out.
There's a walking path that goes like this, and it comes out to the other side of Orchard Hills. And there's just a man kind of deer path, that's where I put that stone, and which connects to the big path. Cause, Orchard Hills takes their mower and they mow the grass of the path out to the other side.
Okay. So is that common area?
Yeah, it's a common area. This is, I think this is just owned by Orchard Hills Trust, association from the digging
Okay.
that I did. But, there's always people that walk in and out of there
Okay.
with the dogs and.
I take it that's where the complaint came from? was
Yes.
Orchard Hill, yeah. All right, well, pull the stone back to your side of the
I'll take
stone
it
wall.
right out of there. It's not a big deal. It's only
Yeah.
like maybe 8, 10 wheelbarrows full. I'll
Yeah.
throw it in my, front garden bed.
All right. As far as the trees go, what do you think?
When you
The
gotta
buffer
plant
zone, Huh?
Yeah, I wanted to plant,
He was
I
gonna
wanted to
plant
plant a couple, I'm gonna have the stumps ground. And, I wanted to plant a couple blue spruces on one, kinda close to the last tree that you see there, and then one in the front, and then I wanted to do some abrevieties to suck, the ones that, you know, they kinda, a shrub that kinda sucks water.
all right.
Martha, I recommended
Martha.
that you might have some possible input on suggested trees
Yeah.
that might be more native and still perform the water sucking function.
Martha's our tree expert.
Yeah, I mean, my suggestion would be, are you looking for conifers, or are you looking, or does it matter?
Well, the problem I'm gonna have over there is the driveway's right there, and what was happening with these trees, they were so rotted, they were very old. And I had to take them down, there were ants starting to grow on them, and then I noticed when the heavy winds is, they were starting to kind of move the asphalt a little bit. So I have some areas, I really wanted to line it up really nice, but the stumps are so rooted. I don't know how far much I'm gonna do with stump grinding, but in between each stump, I'm gonna grind them and plant the trees in between those stumps and raise that up with, loam and decorate it with like 3/4 stone, and then the problem's kinda solved on that end of the driveway.
So are you looking for water control in the driveway? Is your
I don't
driveway
really get any
soggy?
water, I get a little bit of water, you know, I haven't really seen it, this is my first year, we haven't had that much snow. A lot, in this neighborhood here, a lot of water pools here and heads over to this way.
Mhm.
Cause they have a sump pump, and it kinda pools here, but it kinda just stays along the wall. And really, what I only get right here is from the snow that I put when I shovel the driveway. But I don't have no groundwater or anything that comes from here down. It's kind of really, really dry.
Okay. So you're not really looking for trees that need to suck water?
No, you know, I do like, you know, blue spruces, I kinda wanted a couple of those, you know, and to put on the end, and then do a couple small low-end shrubs in the middle of those.
Okay. And I think the spruces are fine. Arborvitae get eaten by deer.
Yes, I know, I have a couple of those in my backyard, I do have quite an amount of deer back.
I mean, you could look at juniper.
Yeah.
If you're looking for conifers and a little bit of privacy. Red maples tend to do well where water is a concern.
Yeah, would that be the Japanese maple?
No,
Just the
no,
regular?
just the regular red maple.
Red maple, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can do those.
Yeah, okay.
Those, I like those. Now, will I have to pull a permit for stump grinding?
It's buffer zone work. It's,
I think
I don't think it's close enough to be,
what's that?
She doesn't think it's close enough.
I don't think it's.
No, it's, I mean, you got a stone wall that separates it too
Yeah.
from, in
Yeah,
this
that
case, I
was
mean,
kind
the
of
worst case, we would do
The
an
main thing was just
RDA
to
and
remove
then
the
we were gonna go
stone. This was
negative
just like a
anyhow,
fun little extra.
Yeah.
That it would be nice to have some native trees. We're trying to focus more on planting native species in the community.
I just want the trees
Especially
that
as like
attract the bugs.
more invasive species and more different concerns keep arising, so.
Yep.
Planting resilient native things that can stand up to those would be extra lovely.
Yep.
All right, so we agree that we're not gonna require any permit for the stump grinding, so you're all set on that.
Okay.
And,
And I don't need a permit to plant,
No.
anything
No.
like that?
no, just get the stone out
Okay.
to the other side of the
I
wall.
can, get the stone out, and
Yeah.
then would you like me to send you some pictures of the
That'd be great.
completion?
Yeah.
Via email?
Mm-hmm.
Can do that?
Perfect, thank you so
Sounds
much.
good.
Yeah. If
Okay.
you guys could keep those pictures, you're more than welcome.
Do you want them, Alea?
Yeah, sure, I'll just pop them in with my letter so I can.
Well, thank you guys, nice
Yep.
meeting you all.
Yep. Thank you
Yeah.
so Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, still on enforcement, do we have any updates, 56 Oregon Ave, or?
I went out to visit the site. It still looks probably like it did. There didn't look to be any new earthwork moving or
All right.
piles of old, there's just piles of old chopped wood, but it didn't even look like new chopped wood had arrived, so.
Okay. 284 South Quinsigamon Ave.
They had, what was the original enforcement for that?
So you had, put a lawn in, right up
They
to
put a
the-
lawn in.
Okay.
Well, they still have a lawn in. They added erosion control,
Yeah.
but they still have a lawn square up to the wetland, so I don't think there's been any change there. It looked like they'd recently been doing some brush clearing as well, so there's less brush between the wetland and the lawn. And then on, adjacent to that property, there's also some significant brush clearing that I might be looking into, because they'd laid some rubber mats down,
Mats.
almost like a odd
For heavy equipment?
pool thing, like pool liners.
Like a
They
pond
just
liner.
yeah, it looked like a odd thing. And then what was the last one?
Redland.
Redland.
Yeah, 29 Redland.
That's, I think that was before you, but that was again when the guy was in the middle of putting the lawn in. It was fall last year. We said get it done. He was supposed to get back to us with an NOI, and after the fact filing, but
And he hasn't.
he hasn't submitted anything yet, so we can,
Okay.
And I have
we'll give him a
not
friendly nudge. Same, with-
talked to
the last time we talked to 284, they were still trying to find a consultant, so, but I mean, it's been several months now. I would hope they've got one at this point. So we'll give
Yeah,
him,
I did not make any attempt to contact Oregon Ave
We'll just
owners
give 'em
either,
a
so.
friendly reminder.
We'll start emailing some people
Okay.
this month, but I did site visits today.
All right, so let's move on now to discussing and signing orders of conditions, determination of applicability. We have
I
three
have three, yep.
that we can do tonight. Ken, do you want to make any motions on 701 Boston
I
Turnpike?
make a motion, we issue an order condition at 701 Boston Turnpike.
All right, I don't think we had any conditions, did we, on that? No?
Nope.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Don't see any. All in favor? Aye.
Make a motion, we issue an order condition at 136 South Quinsigamon Ave.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? I don't see any. All in favor?
Aye. Make a motion, we issue an order conditions at 332 South Quinsigamon Ave.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Yeah. Now, one of the things we typically do on those ones where the walls are right on the lake is we usually have them conditioned as staked out by a land surveyor, so they don't creep.
Oh, that's good, that's good.
So we can, we'll put that as a, that's
Yeah,
only out of the
that's a
ordinary
good
condition.
point. That would be for 332. which-
Yeah, the one where they're putting the wall right on the water line.
Yeah.
Just typically
Yeah,
want to have it
that's a good
staked
one.
out and as-built.
All right, so Ken, you want to make that motion on 332 again with the condition that we do the survey stakeout?
I make a motion, we issue an order condition at 332 South Quinsigamon Ave with the condition that we have a registered land surveyor stake out the wall at the base of the property at the lake.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Don't see any. All in favor? Aye. And we've signed, we voted on the RDA.
So that's one RDA.
And Ken, you're gonna recuse yourself from 547. All right. 547 Hartford Turnpike, there's an extension request in. For how long's that one? This is
Mr. Chairman,
two-
Kevin Quinn with Quinn Engineering. I'm here on behalf of Polito Development.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Kevin.
We filed a request to extend the order of conditions on that. It expires, I believe, June 16th. We would ask for a 3-year extension, but whatever the grant.
So June 16 expiration,
A
and
3-year
you're looking for
extension.
3 years.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Well, you want to take a vote on it
So
right now?
motion,
So, would someone like to make a motion that we issued that extension for 3 years?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we provide a 3-year extension to a certificate of compliance for 547 Hartford Turnpike, effective starting on the an original expiration date of June 16th, 2023.
It's actually order of conditions, not certificate of
Yeah,
compliance.
sorry, order of conditions. It's late.
All right, do we have a
Late.
sec, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You're all set, Kevin.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
We're not gone though. Still got another one.
Oh, you do?
Yes.
All right. Let's see, what else do we have?
Certificate of compliances.
Yes, certificate of compliance, okay. Kenny coming back? Yep. All right, moving on to our next item, discuss signed certificates of compliance. The first one's 935 Main Street.
We're not signing that tonight.
Nope, I'm still waiting on that one.
Okay, so
I
that
did a
one,
site visit for that today. The detention basins are still.
that's no-go on that one. Okay. Oak Meadow Circle,
Oak Meadow Circle, fine, yeah,
okay, we
We're all
can
set.
sign that.
yeah.
And Centec Park North,
Yes, that will just be a partial, certificate of compliance for the completed work so far. Obviously, they, they have the,
It'll be about the barn.
they have the
Yeah.
barn to deal with, so they just want, a certificate of compliance for the two facilities
okay,
that are completed
partial,
and the parking structures that have been completed so far.
okay. Ken, you got one, missed this one?
What is that?
Determination of applicability. That was the
I
negative.
didn't sign that one.
No. What's this one? Certificate of compliance.
Would it aid you all at all if I put your printed names on the, other side of the signature sheet? And you could just find your name in the column and, or.
That would be fine.
It always saves time.
That would be
You
good.
don't have to write your name twice.
Don't bother, send them in anyway.
We've hit
That's it, I think.
everything, haven't we?
Yeah, so the bylaw I sent to town council, and they had, several comments, so we're gonna sit down on Friday and review them. Get some, not concerns, but some stuff he thinks that we
Okay.
may or may not be able to do, so, but I would hope to have that for next. I mean, we still have the draft on the warrant, I just gotta get the, so, I think we still have time to get it done for this town meeting. I'm meeting with town manager and Jeff and on Friday to go through it.
All right, what do you guys,
Good evening. Devin Howe from Beals Associates here for the Centec Park. Just looking for clarification. Did you guys, or did the chair sign that?
we signed a partial
Okay,
certificate tonight.
Yes.
okay.
I
Yep.
will, try to get that out the door tomorrow.
Okay.
The whole thing,
Okay,
and that'll go through the mail.
all right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Have a good
Now
night.
clear us for TCO on the building too, on conservation side of things.
Sorry?
For temporary certificate of occupancy, I just wanna make sure that's all set. and we're
Should.
good with that.
I'm not sure about
Yeah,
that,
they
but-
should, they don't normally hold them up for a long time.
Yeah, no.
We don't sign off and see about
Okay,
it.
okay,
Yeah.
well-
I mean, if Patty has questions, you can ask us, but.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure about that.
Yeah.
Just
Okay.
wanna make sure.
Yep.
All right, thank you, have a good night.
Yep, you too.
Make a motion, we adjourn?
We have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.